better to the professionals.
Blessed by Bundy, blah, blah, blah.
Started off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up. Surfing on the web and I'm shooting at 3. I've been goated when I got my G. I'm an alien boy from a different planet, yeah. So I got my drink, I'm riding in the 1920s Model T Ford. Car era lore. Call me Levi playing on the keys, boy. And I'm about to put my gloves on. If I said it, then I meant that. Yeah, I like that one, I'm about to get that. Crash that whip for the drumsticks, whiplash. I'm about to get them all. Are you with that? In a white boat, surrounded by blue. I want one, but I got a cop too. I wanna fly high in the sky, arms out wide, trying to soar from a bird's eye view. I'm on fire, Ricky, Bobby, cracking the pavement, Whitney, Bobby. I'm a Saki bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Bruce Wayne been a dog, and I keep it 101, cause I'm feeling kinda spotty. You sipping on some rock, and I'm sipping on octane. The only thing around my neck is the blockchain. Now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to
GM. Drop some GM in the chat down below. Give us some love on the space up above. Those likes, reposts, and bookmarks are greatly appreciated. We'll get rolling here in about 30 seconds.
We can make a trade, get the memo. Refuse not falling for the FOMO. Listening to Coffee with Captain. You know we worldwide, they loco. I ain't never gonna stop rapping. Orlando, yeah, we working magic. We rocking Ethereum amenities. I just went and caught me a half base. Man, I got a shout out to off with a bit. Now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up. Breaking them all the choose wine. But they got knowledge to move, son. I'm shocking in shades with my brother in suits. Yeah, them blues is coming. Even though it's hard to pick, eeny, mighty, mo, soda on the mix, no biting lips, it's time to go. Index number 1, no thumbs up, you gotta scroll. Looking at the ghost in studio, it's time to go. Had a helmet on by myself until I met a mask that wanted to have a face off. So I had to bring my chainsaw, full tank of gas in the ride when my brakes off. I'm A1, but a different
This episode is brought to you by DGen Network, the only community-based Web3 media network, bringing you the very best content in the NFT and cryptocurrency space. Please visit dgen.network and check out our other great shows. That's DGen, DGEN.network.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain GM. We are excited to recap the presidential debate for the next 2 hours. I kid. It is a politics-free show this morning, I promise the people. We may get in a heated debate about the most important, unimportant round 2 draft pick in the NBA draft of all time. I don't know as if I've ever seen any fans upset or even talking about round 2 picks in the NBA. If you're not an NBA fan, round 2 picks are very rarely ever important. Most of them are the 13, 14, 15 man and never play anyways. People are mad at LeBron for getting his son on his team. I think it's pretty cool. If we're gonna have the GOAT conversation, I've clearly been in the MJ corner there. But I shared in the war room last night, if LeBron wins a championship with his son, I will at least acknowledge him as the co-GOAT of the NBA of all time. I think it's pretty cool. I'm here for the narrative and looking forward to that. But in all seriousness, it's a Friday. We will have some fun today. We'll recap the week in Web3, look at the weekend ahead. We did get news of the Solana ETF potentially yesterday as we were winding down the show, and I'm sure a lot of else to talk about, but I promise no political discourse this morning. If you want to get your recap on that, just go check the timeline. I would just say that I like others. I like Von Front, and I am actively looking at property. I think the search for whether it be Puerto Rico or I don't know, that might not be far enough, Steve. It might be Lisbon might suck me in as we're over there for Ape Fest in October. But I've got 2 years, and then I might be just a world traveler. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that'll be the extent of any political discourse. Go check the timeline. It's you. If you're on Twitter, you probably couldn't miss it. But not the greatest of day for Americans.
Yeah, no, my take on that is twofold, not related to anything election specifically outside of number one, have we tried unplugging and plugging America back in? Is this the best we can do? It was just uncomfortable to watch for me. Again, not commenting honestly on both. Like, we were kind of in the war room. We were just like, this is awful for so many reasons. It's not even like one or specific person is awful. My only other take is that, and again, not even going down the political spectrum as much as just kind of threw up top. Like, I was thinking about it this morning because we're not going to talk about this candidate or that candidate.
I also threw up, Steve. You're not alone.
I think everybody threw up last night, but I did toss up in the Jumbotron and kind of threw out this morning because I was like thinking about it. Is my kind of final parting thought on it is, one, I kind of tweeted this yesterday and I didn't put this in maybe I'll toss it in the chat, but I kind of basically said, if you made a movie about, and they had a debate scene and that debate was last night, you'd be like, I don't believe you.
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
Yeah, Hollywood would not script it. It's not believable.
Yeah, I scored one. I basically said, I said score one for the simulation theory on that one. Again, we had a president say, a former president say, I did not have sex with that porn star. Number one, that was a line on a debate in politics in 2024. So that was insane. And then the only other thing I kind of threw up there was, two other things. One, I saw Stephen A. Smith on some desk, and I just thought Stephen A. Smith on politics would be electric. So that was good. That was something I would look forward to. And then the only, go ahead, Cap.
The only bright thing to come out of it is we do have memes for days. Like, we are going to, if you're into memes, like, just brace yourself. I have a feeling the memes between now and November we might hit all-time high in terms of memes.
Yeah, well, and like that's going to lead to tickers. So I was paying attention for some tickers yesterday. No such luck on those. So we'll have memes for days, and then and other than that, like, my only other take, I put up top is I think I was right that the main sort of that crypto is not going to be a main election issue, and I think that's a good thing. And I don't want to go down like the rabbit hole of whether we think it is or isn't, whatever. I think last night was affirming to my initial belief, which is we're going to see the same talking points doesn't matter what questions asked. If you ask a question of either candidate, they're going to go back to 1 to 3 talking points that they have eventually somehow. What was amazing last night was, like, there's a moment, again, this isn't a commentary on one candidate. It's just more like one of those things that's funny where, like, I don't remember what it was, but, like, they asked, like, Trump a question, and Biden had the same thing happen to him, so it's not a Trump commentary, but this is the one I remember, where, like, he goes on this long rant, and Jake Tapper just goes, like, he goes on this long rant about immigration and the election and all these other things, and then, like, Jake Tapper goes, so you have 37 seconds left. The question was, how do you plan to keep the prices of pharmaceutical drugs lower, or something like that? And it was just like one of those moments where, like, we looked at each other, we're like, and me and Ms. NFT Bark just start laughing. We're like, neither of them want to address the questions. They just want to say 4 to 5 things at each other over and over. We saw that. And so anyway, long story short, no, I don't think crypto is going to be in the U.S. election. I think that's a good thing. I think it's actually means it'll be less debated. Initially, we want to be like, I think it was almost like celebrities coming into NFTs. Like, we wanted it so bad. We want people to be talking about crypto. We want it to be a main character issue. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If they're just passing laws and regulations and ETFs are just happening, isn't that probably the optimal thing that we're just not arguing? Like, we don't have to have people picking sides based on who says what on television because they're then forced to for their team. So I don't know. Like, I'll say that again. I don't want to get deep into it, but I thought, I had this reflection this morning where I was like, when you have like something bad happen to you or something happen to you and you're like, actually, that was one of the best things that happened to me. I actually think after watching last night, the last thing I want is those two yelling about crypto on TV in an uneducated way. So I think it's a good thing. So I'll kind of leave it at that, Cap, and then we can move on to anything. But I figured I'd throw that out there because I was feeling kind of good about that, actually.
Yeah, I don't. To your point, I don't know if anything comes out of good of any discussions at this point. We're a laughing stock of the world. Like, that's the thing. I'm much more in tune globally now than I have ever been before. Due to I've got global friends before that I really didn't have, and it's just to see all the non-Americans on the timeline like laughing at us. Like, it's embarrassing. I don't know another word for it. It's just embarrassing. That said, hard pivot, too much time on the debate. Again, it's all over the timeline. I'm sure you can find it if you want further discussion on that. Hard pivot though, Steve, in talking about something I'm disappointed with, slightly embarrassed. I'm going to go light. I'm going to hit the flyover because I did yesterday. I sent out a post tagging Zed and their leadership and said I was going to go off this morning. They're welcome. Stage is open if they'd like to defend themselves or give their side of the story. I did get a few DMs and they've committed to joining us on the show, but they need some time, Steve. They need some time because I believe they've hopefully realized what they've proposed is, I don't say this lightly, it's the first time that I've really felt like I'm getting rugged. It's the first time I just saw another post on the timeline that I commented on it, and someone made the comment, is like, is this like, it's, well, let me rewind before I even share the comment. The TLDR is they've made an announcement that they're going to launch ZX. But to get to ZX, they're essentially nerfing the current game and all the assets. I'm going to say it again. This is an on-chain game in Web3 where the players own assets, in this case NFTs, that they've played the game with, that they breed to create more assets. And essentially, and some of these assets, by the way, are quote-unquote Genesis horses, meaning they weren't bred, they were created by the game. And part of the pitch from day one is there'll never be more Genesis horses created. These will always be at the core foundation, the core building block, whether breeding or whatever the case may be. And the TLDR is they're going to call it ZX and completely start the game over. And instead of accounting for assets that players have acquired, have bred, have purchased, it's like, I don't even know the way to say it, Steve, other than it's like, trust me, bro vibes. It's like, oh, we're going to give you points for any assets that you hold, and those will convert to something in the new game. Excuse me? Like, it's not even, and oh, by the way, only if you engage the current platform. So like, there's been a lot of a big exodus. Game has been broken. It is broken. It does need an overhaul. They went through a few leadership changes. The consensus is the last CEO really, really broke the mechanics of the game. It's just, it's not a good game. It needs fixed, and probably the best way to fix it is start from scratch. But to do so and not account for the existing assets it's like the antithesis of Web3 to me. It's here's the quote I was referring to, Golden Globe Masters. I'm no legal expert, but if I'm not mistaken, Zed Run deleting horses so they can run a new game called ZX Run sounds like a lawsuit with a lot of merit. I'm not a litigious person. Like the whole, like the class action of Top Shot, and I think, by the way, we all got 12 cents per moment that we held during that time. I haven't even taken action. Like I held a bunch of moments. I could probably go claim about $12, but it's not like I don't care. And I thought that was kind of a silly lawsuit. I don't know how they avoid a lawsuit if they in fact do this, because it's not like I've got a lot of horses. A lot of mine were bred, and I actually I guess like per the ETH I've earned racing and breeding and selling, I'm probably up slightly. We're not going to talk about opportunity costs. I see Von Frunten flew up in his hand. I know he's got some brutal opportunity costs. Like my worst trade ever, Steve. I traded a Bored Ape for a Genesis Nakamito because I felt it would have, as long as the game stayed, it would have ongoing value, to breed, to race, etc. And bred a lot of horses with that one. Had some fun with it. I haven't played the game for months because, again, the game is broken and they need to reset. And I'm not attempting to start some rumors here, say, hey, we should start suing these Web3 brands that rug us of our assets. But am I completely off base to think deleting assets that you own, that you were sold and purchased with believing what the organization told you, is that not like borderline theft? Am I completely, check me if I'm way off here, but it is whether theft or potential fraud, like misleading people, like it's just like, and now they've come back and said, oh, that was a misunderstanding. We actually you're gonna get credit for everything you own, everything you hold. We just don't know all the details yet. And it's like this CEO, by the way, he didn't just start. He's been on, I think it's 9 months he's been there. So they had a long time to prepare about this announcement, the next phase of the game, and to come out and not have one of the most, if not the most important question answered. Like, oh, we don't know. All your horses are getting deleted, but we'll make it up to you in the new game. Maybe they do, but like forcing your existing community who have invested in your platform to farm your broken product to potentially get taken care of in the new game, it's the most disgruntled I've been with any Web3 brand. And I say this, someone who has been a Zed Run brand ambassador for over 3 years now, even through the ups and downs. Like, I always saw the potential, always saw, had faith in the team. The founding team has moved on in this new leadership team. I'm appalled by the announcement, and I'm not the only one. I'll end my rant. We can get Von Front in here and see if he's got similar or different thoughts. We don't have to get it. Like, I already went too far. I really was going to punt most of the conversation until we actually did get their leadership team on to defend themselves and answer some of these questions. But man, it is, I feel rugged. I don't know the way to put it. I feel like I've been rugged, or I feel like I'm in the process of getting rugged.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kick it to Von Front in a second here, but yes, I mean, this is a problem. I mean, this is like, I'll say, like, this is absolutely something that, is sort of to your point, the antithesis of Web3. It's, taking an asset that was given to you in certain promises. And actually, it's kind of an odd timing you have, because I was actually talking to one of your boys, Josh Grabowski, and I were having a conversation yesterday about I kid, I know, although I bet you've softed on Josh at some point, whether he's right or wrong on certain things. But I was having a conversation with him yesterday where he was saying, and don't react to this initially thing because it's a Josh type thing, but like he was saying, like, someone else was in the comments saying that, Yuga Labs and Other Side, and then delivering on what they promise, and do they issue refunds? What does that look like? How does it work in the real world type thing? And I only bring that up to say, it feels like Zed Run is now at the point where it's like, there are some questionable things. Now, what was promised, I don't know. Does the spirit of what's promised mattered? I don't know. I don't know what matters in these situations. What I do know is that, people put a lot of faith in them early on, spent a lot of money, and like, forget secondary, like, I know you mentioned, like, you traded like a Bored Ape Yacht Club for like a Genesis, not, by the way, Nakamoto, you said Nakamigo, which is amazing. I'm like, you traded a Zed Run, you traded a Bored Ape Yacht Club for when they were like 100 ETH for like a Nakamigo. That's crazy. But it's a problem, and it's a.
Well, it was on the run up before they got nearly that high. It was an early, like, to give you just to put the whole trade in comparison. I had to throw in a couple of Mad Cat Militia to get the deal done.
Wow, a Mad Cat Militia. That's that's hard. But I don't know. Like, to me, like, I look at it and I say something as simple as, like, it is the antithesis of Web3. I do wonder what sort of action can be taken there, because, again, as Josh and the other person were talking about refunds in my in my DMs or in my on the comments, and what they could look like and how they can work, and how Impact Theory did it, and how you would, because I kind of said, I'm like, using the Other Side example, I was like, so are you going to cover my gas? Are you going to cover what I paid the day of the transaction? Are you going to cover what it cost then? Are you going to cover what is ApeCoin now? What if I sold it? What about the buyer? What about the buyer who bought it for more money? What about the buyer for less money? So, like, there's so many things that go into that make it difficult. But with something like Zed Run, I don't know what it looks like, but the fact that, like, people have, I mean, for the most part, people have stuck with them to some degree by not just completely unloading these horses in many ways, especially through the good, the bad, the ugly. And yes, you were hoping it was going to work out, but to see where it is now and see them saying, like, oh, like, we're basically gonna nerf all the old assets, and you'll get some points to work with the new stuff. Like, that should have been really well thought out about what that process is, so that the people who were playing the game could think about it. And by the way, Zed Run also doesn't have an excuse, in the sense that, like, they're a horse racing game that had betting, so they can't pretend like, like Garga made a comment yesterday about, like, I thought it seems like days ago at this point, Garga made a comment about, like, nothing like overly financialized in what we're building. We're just building cool shit and shipping it. Zed Run can't pretend they're not financialized, because the whole thing they had was sports racing and betting on those sports, on those on horse racing and betting on those horse races. So there's really no defensible position for what they're doing, as I understand it. And I have a handful of horses, so I would have had a nice little stimmy if something good happened, but not as nearly as many as you and some others. So I'll put a pin in it on that one, and we can go to Von Frunten. But it is something that, I mean, it is. I'm struggling to understand it, and I understand why they didn't want to come on today, because I don't think they have answers yet. And hopefully, and even though, you said you were holding back, I would actually rather, honestly, them listen to this and come up with acceptable solutions. And we had somebody on this show. I won't say who, but there's a major project that listened to the show at one point that made a change to a mechanic that is pretty front and center for them. And to me, that's a good thing. That's fine. And so I would love to see Zed Run do that all the same. But Von Frunten, you came up pretty quickly when Zed came up. Go ahead and get in here, GM.
GM gang. I won't speak to any potential lawsuits or basis for lawsuits or anything like that. No. So I don't get spicy a lot. And my level of spiciness is not the Riggs or Cap level of spiciness, but this is going to be a pretty spicy take for me, right? And the reason is for the people who weren't there for when people were minting Zed Run horses, right? We get a lot on, people get upset for what they pay for assets on secondary, right? And they say, oh my God, I paid 30 ETH for a Moonbird and now they're worthless. I paid 10 ETH for a Gutter Cat and now they're worthless, right? But the defense is always, yeah, but the project didn't sell you it at that level, right? The project minted it to you for whatever, $1,000, a couple $100, whatever. That was their financial, promise to you was deliver $800 worth of value. Anything you got above and beyond that, fantastic. That was the market. That wasn't that, right? When these things minted, and the minting experience was horrendous for those who experienced it, right? It was early days. Contracts were breaking. The internet was breaking. The site wouldn't load. It was the timeline would have destroyed it in these days, right? But you had horses going, these Nakamoto, Z1 Genesis horses were going for 20, 30,000 a pop direct to Zed Run, right? We had a stable. I think we still have a dozen or so Genesis horses that we probably paid anywhere, and we never even got into the Z1s were the most expensive, the Z10s were the least expensive at the Genesis. We played in the Z6 through Z10 streets, right? Back half, and still probably unloaded, me and a friend of mine, 2 to 3 ETH, minimum into this space. Not secondary, not other people getting that money, Zed Run directly getting that money. And we were minnows in this space. And so that's the part for me, for those of us that great.
I'm certain there's a lot of people that are 6 figures deep in terms of their purchases direct from Zed, if not 7 figures deep. There's the Dinglings of the world are probably well over $1 million into their purchases they bought direct from Zed.
Well, and Von Frunten's making me feel worse about myself because I totally forgot. Up until right now, I don't even know what happened to it because I ended up leaving the group for various reasons. But I was in a private Discord group where we would talk about various things we would want to buy and whatever. And I forgot we had a Zed Run stable that I probably tossed 1 to 2 ETH into, which is going to hurt after an ETH ETF gets passed and there's that ETH is worth a whole lot more. And a few times we talked about should we sell, should we not, all these other things. So actually, now that you're talking Von Frunten, I'm remembering my group that I put together, but keep cooking, go ahead. But yeah, now I'm remembering that I have money just sitting around on this.
But between Zed Run and Cap rugging me on an Apemon egg, I probably could have had 10 to 20 bored apes at mint, but hindsight's 2020. So you're not as down as bad as me right now. So I think that's the issue for me, right? Look, if other we've seen changes in leadership in projects, right? We've seen other people come in, try to salvage community, things like that, and but they did it on the back of somebody who, whether you hated the project, whether it was a rug, whether it was just a failed company, whatever, if you minted and you paid your funds to that company, you probably weren't out a ton. This hits different because you have people, right? And you take the whales like Cap and Dingling and others out of it, right? Like you've got minnows like me who even were spending 10, 15 grand on these things that were active participants for a while, then didn't see anything, then held out and something, and now those are nerfed. So that's where I think this hits different than a lot of other places. That if you rug a project that I mint for 0.05 ETH, yeah, sucks, but I'll live on to fight another day. This one, and time doesn't heal all wounds. This one just feels different. It feels more like a true gut punch, that concept of how much people paid directly to the company that you took over has zero weight and zero bearing on any of the decisions as you're trying to revamp the platform.
I'll even take the value out of it. Like, things happen, assets depreciate, it goes to zero. I'd even give them a pass on that. What it, to me is unacceptable is, how many times did we hear the analogy that, on-chain gaming is better because, if Madden launches a new game, like, you got to go buy all your assets again. Like, you can't you don't own those assets. Here, you actually own your assets. And if there's a new game or, like that whole concept is just like thrown out the window here. It's like, yeah, we're decentralized, but your assets we're not going to support those anymore. It's like, we're really not Web3 gaming company, are we? This is just a Web2 organization masquerading on chain.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is like, and that's why it makes me frustrated when I hear, you and Von Frunten talking about it. And again, I've been in these same sort of streets with a lot of the Zed stuff and seen, like, I forgot about my stable and how much we were racing, and it was
like fun. They were crushing the community. Like, think back to the early days of Zed. There's a reason it got so many of us so deep into Web3. It wasn't just the game, but the community that developed around it, the third-party content, like, they were on top of the world, and they chose not to fan those flames. And shit happens, I get it. But man, how far they've fallen it's sad.
Yeah, and like, it's just, it feels like this could have been, I don't know, like, again, I don't want to say like, it could have been avoided. It's just one of those things that just feels icky, right? It just feels bad to see like, like your assets. And I would explain to people with Zedrun, I'd be like, I own these horses and I get, you breed them, the whole mechanism. It's like, I can't, when you came in on this one yesterday, because I just stopped keeping up with Zed, I just gave up as a failed, experiment. I was shocked kind of to hear the decisions. And it just, it feels like, I don't know what, I guess what it comes down to is we need to know, like, I guess from them, like, and Cap, this would be like for you, Von Frunten and others, probably something to look into, like, what was promised, how was it promised, and what were they saying they were going to deliver on? And then from there, it's just a matter of like, obviously there's, there's exceptions to everything in how they're, approach, right? I mean, if it's like, they might have had TNCs, but if they're selling you $15,000 horses and being like, yeah, and then we're going to get rid of those, like, there has to be something, like, I'd have to imagine there's probably something on record of, and he's not there anymore, but something on record of someone like Ebbs being like, yeah, and like, you own your horses, so that's even better, so they never go away or something. Like, there's probably something you can find related to that, and I think that's what it comes down to, is what was promised and what was delivered, because I think that's the sort of sticking point when it comes to some of this stuff, because I've heard, again, even with the Moonbird stuff, I've heard people talk about class actions against Moonbirds based on things that were promised on the website. Again, I think they had some pretty tight TNCs in there, but does the spirit of what they did matter? I don't know, but it's definitely going to get ugly pretty quickly.
I gotta imagine sooner or later we see some class actions from the 2021 Mania. No?
Yeah, I mean, we already have Top Shot. Top Shot had a class action already, and yeah, like you said, and I think Joey Valls is saying 33 cents per Top Shot moment at the time when they did it. So I need to check on what that looks like. So we're already seeing it, and again, like, this is probably a hot take, but because people will be like, oh, we don't need laws, regulations, this is crypto. And I get this pushback. I don't think it's a bad thing if we are seeing people, enact actual real life, laws and, against companies that, effectively rug them like that. Like, to me, that's not a bad thing. That is a step in the right direction, as crazy as that sounds, because it means that you have to operate like a legitimate business, and you can't just grift off everybody else in this space.
My mind is just blown that they didn't, like, how do you not anticipate this community blowback? Like now they're straight like, oh no, because at first it was like your engagement from now until we launch the new game is how you're going to get rewarded points and assets in the new game. And they're like, oh well, we will take into consideration past engagement. It's like, and now they're screaming like, oh yeah, you're if you have like you'll get some credit for like, but they don't have any answers. They don't know. It's like, how do you not think you're going to get blowback if you're telling your community who's paid collectively millions of dollars for these assets, we're going to destroy all the assets. They're not going to be worth anything anymore. But trust us, bro, we're going to give you points in the new system that you can buy some assets. You'll be happy. Like, it's just, it's mind blowing to me that they didn't think through the inevitable blowback that they're getting.
Oh, I think they maybe anticipated at least some of it, maybe not all of it. But my gut is they probably just thought it wouldn't be this bad and it would just go away. And it would be like, yeah, you just got to weather the storm and kind of sit your way through it. And it's like, like that's it. And I don't think they realize it would be, and who knows if it's this bad, because it wasn't exactly all over my timeline. So maybe they will get away with it. But yeah, I'll be curious to see the direction they go as a company. And it is a sad day because Zed Run is something that onboarded a lot of people into this ecosystem, or at least a decent amount played around on there who were already in there and onboarded others. A lot of people, it was these streets, there were discords around it. There were so many things. And now we sit here with our hands up saying, man, this kind of stinks. We're just sort of, left holding the bag. And I don't know. So I'll let Joey Valls get in here and kind of get his point, and then we'll go to Circles. And then I know we got Caruso coming up to talk a little bit of True Stub, and then at 8:45. And, from there we can keep running. But go ahead and get in here, Joey Valls.
GM guys. So I'm going to preface this with, I haven't owned a single Zed Run asset. And the reason why is when I came into this space, I didn't know a single person that owned NFTs. So I wasn't really sure where to get started. Then after being in here for a few months, come to find out, a really good friend of mine, he owns a pretty big apparel company. He actually is responsible for doing the apparel for all of the biggest NFT projects early on in the space, and helped create the token gated, or the original token gated merch store, was a huge Zed Run guy. And every time we would talk about the space and what's going on, he's like, hey, did you get into Zed Run yet? Did you get into Zed Run yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. I was like, I don't understand, like, there's so much information here, right? Like all the different layers of horses and this and that. And he was like, don't worry, we'll hop on a call. I'll explain it to you. You got to do it. It's so much fun. I'm up all this money. And I never ended up doing it because he was so busy. He didn't get a chance to explain it to me. But as like a new person to the space that was late to Zed Run, it was not easy for me to just drop a bunch of money to like start playing because of how expensive the assets had gotten. Like I wasn't going to go buy a bunch of like cheap ass horses that had no chance of winning, because I'm competitive. Like I want to win. I need to figure out the best strategies, buy the best horses. So I could never play Zed Run. What I can say though, is that my dad does this in real life. My dad is he's a stable owner, and he owns racing horses. And this feels, so he's in New Jersey, and he races at a track called Monmouth, and they have this thing called Jersey Breds, where every weekend, every race day, there's races that are specifically for Jersey Breds, because Jersey bred horses, like statistically and genetically speaking, are not as good as Kentucky bred or Dubai bred or whatever, right? Like it's because Jersey is not the hotbed of racing like New York and Florida and Kentucky and places like that. So they allow you, if your horse is bred and born in Jersey, to compete against other Jersey horses. That would be like Monmouth saying, hey, sorry, no more Jersey bred races, only Kentucky bred races. So all you people that have spent all this money breeding Jersey bred horses, you're fucked now. That's how
actually,
this feels.
To be honest, like I would take it a step further. And like I would say this would be the equivalent of them saying, no more horses bred anywhere up until this point. Only horses bred henceforth from a new stable that the track is sanctioning shall count. And if you talk about us on social media, then your horses will be able to race and you'll get better opportunities. Like that's what this sounds like to some degree. Like it's even more extreme than what you're saying. Like the real world analogy makes sense, but like I think it's even more extreme from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy because I think about like from a real world perspective, if they said, forget what you just said, right, which is really extreme. But if they said that to my dad, like, hey, your stable is basically 95% Jersey bred horses, and sorry, they can't run here anymore because it's only going to be Kentucky breds now, my dad would sue the ever living shit out of them, right? Because of and I don't, and again, I don't know the terms and conditions of Zed Run and all that stuff like that, but I can't imagine that like there has to be something, and I'm not a lawyer also, so I don't know, but this just doesn't feel, forget legally and all that stuff like that, but this what they're doing just doesn't feel right. Like I don't know how you expect to build a new community and bring back your old community when you're doing something that genuinely makes them unhappy. Because like my dad would be like, if this was real life, my dad would be, sue them and whatever. So like, I can't even imagine how much, these people feel. Cause it's crazy to me, but anyways, that's what I just wanted to share.
Yeah. No, it's bananas. It's a bananas like concept to think about. And like, here's the thing. I honestly don't care what the TNC specifically say because like it's about what you said, your actions as you went on this thing. What's even crazier to me though, Cap, is, before we go to circles, what's even crazier to me is that the product was so fun, right? It was like an actual, like, even like, it's funny because Joey mentioned the horses. I had like a couple of Genesis horses, some Z10s, I couldn't play in the Nakamoto streets. Like, even though I sort of, I guess technically did play in the Nakamoto streets a little bit with the stable that I was part of, but it's like, it was fun. There was events. There were people live streaming, to your point. There were people who had personalities based off the fact that they would go on streams and stream races and talk about them. We went to an event in, an event.
They had a whole like Sports Center level production quality derby race. It was there was more cool community stuff happening back in 2021 with Zed than maybe we've seen in the collective space since then. As far as like the community actually getting together, creating really cool stuff that wasn't paid for by Zed, it wasn't sponsored by a DAO. It was just the community loved it. That it was truly fun, and there was a real community building around it, and that's all gone.
It was like an e-gaming community. Go ahead, Joey.
I was going to say, what I can say that I do remember too is I was a streamer on Twitch back in like 2020 and 2021. And I remember seeing people streaming Zed Run in 2021 on Twitch. Like, so I used to play a lot of Madden, and I would play in a league. We'd have 32 owners. Everybody got their own team, and we would have like game featured, like our own version of like Monday Night Football, where we would have like commentators commentate the game because we had a whole community around it. I remember seeing that with Zed Run. Like, I remember going on Twitch and being like, what is this horse racing? And it was literally people, like, if it was like you were at the track on a Saturday telling you like who the picks should be and their records, and like that's an organic, amazing community.
I didn't have nearly as many followers back in 21 as I do now. Far and away, it wasn't even close. The most engagement I would get on the timeline is if I put a simple video of a Zed horse winning a race. Like especially if it was a big comeback, like those would cook on the timeline, and it'd get thousands and thousands of impressions when my average tweet would get like 100.
Yeah, I mean, it was a true moment in time, and again, like I don't like, for those who weren't here to experience it. By the way, hit us with a like and a retweet, a comment in the room. I know Fridays oftentimes are sleepier. People are just at the end of the week. They're just trying to make it. So we totally get it. But do us a favor, give us some love on the space, a comment down below. We'll look through the comments as we go. But yeah, this was a very, like, for those who didn't experience it, what you have to understand is that what Cap and me are saying is this was a absolute mania with real, like, I felt FOMO, even though I was somewhat small involved. I mean, even like at one point I went to Atlanta for like the opening of the fan control, I think now defunct fan control football league. When they had like some NFT based, play calling and stuff going on in there. I showed up down there and I get to Atlanta and like there was Zed run races streaming on a big screen with people in the Knights of Degen community because Knights of Degen was doing some stuff with them. And like members were streaming races like SportsCenter, talking about it, talking about upcoming tournaments, breaking down the horses, breaking down their records. There were third-party tools where you could go, and when you were shopping for horses, you looked at their win percentage, you looked at their percentage through APIs against certain distances because you could race all sorts of differences. If you haven't seen Zed Run, I recommend checking out or at least looking up videos of it. It is a beautiful platform. My kids loved it. They would ask me to do horse races regularly. It's the thing that I would show people when they came to my house in like the summer of 2021 they'd be like, I don't get NFTs. I was like, check this out. I would show them a horse racing no matter what place I took after waiting an hour in the queue because they had so many people and so much demand. I would show them and they would say, that's really cool. I'd be like, and I can breed that horse and I own that horse and they can't take it away from me and I'm able to do this and they have this deal with this. And, I could be like, and like people would be like, I would watch that. Like, it's like streaming video games. And it's just, to go from having that lead pole position to where they are now, it is crazy to see that fumble and see how they're with the community. But, and again, I'm not trying to like talk ill of anybody who's tried to build or did their best on it, right? But it's like to have that advantage and that opportunity and to have such a great product and to have it net out where it is now and to have that community and people, again, think about this. With no incentive or money involved, some of them eventually charged, but with no incentive and money involved, people created multiple third-party tools that they then used with their, they then
you know what unlocked me, my biggest aha moment, like a core memory of mine in my crypto journey, Steve, was the very first time I logged into Know Your Horses, which was created by the Lucky Trader group. I think Know Your Horses is now offline, as is Haku, which was one of those third-party marketplaces. The first time I logged into Know Your Horses and my entire stable was there and all their racing history, that was oh my goodness, blockchain tech is going to change everything moment. Like it was that very moment, the first time I logged into a third-party site and it just instantly, I signed a simple transaction. Yes, I own this wallet and all my historical data came into there. And it 10x the experience of the game. Like they had so much, like to the point, we were talking the raging bull of 2021. I was grinding this game daily, knowing it was bad opportunity cost. Like, even though it was profitable to play the game at the time, I knew when the market was just ripping like that, it was not the best use of my time, but I was enjoying it and saw the future, and to see how far it just, I think the other, like, just, I'll wrap my thoughts here and let you take it to hands. My last thought on it before we get, the actual leadership team on here is just that you can't let things go so long without making changes. Like you and if you're going to make massive sweeping changes, you need to get out front and communicate those with your community. And in their defense, this is what they're saying. Oh, we didn't have all the answers. We want to share now. That way we can get the feedback from the community. But it's been far too long. It's just like every month that goes by and nothing's said, you're getting compounding utility debt. I'll steal Riggs's phrase there, and expectational debt from the community. It's whatever you end up doing is going to be a lot harder the more time you let go by without any action, to where they're putting themselves, they almost need a Hail Mary. And I don't disagree that resetting the game is needed, but how they're going about it and just completely throwing out, well, I shouldn't say completely, the communication so far is that your existing assets they matter, but you have no idea how you're going to get rewarded for them. And you may or may not be happy with, you just trust us. You'll be happy with what you get in the new game is how it's been communicated. And that is just about as poor can be from a comm standpoint.
Yeah, and I guess like the last thing I'll say, and then we'll throw around the hands. We'll go. I know Circles that we got, and then we have Shiba getting in here, and I know Cruz's hand up when it related to this as well. I, to me, it's like what's crazy, and I keep saying this is like the game was so good that like the game required them to make some tweaks along the way. Yeah, you didn't want people classing down, and you want to figure out different ways, but like it was like. It wasn't a thing, and it's easy for me to say from where I sit, but it wasn't a thing that was necessarily difficult to manage from you had the things that everybody fucking dreams of. You had the VC funding, you had big names like Mark Cuban involved with it. Mark Cuban went on mint condition to talk about it, or Rec Podcast, I don't remember which one. You had, or not Mark Cuban, they Darren Ravel on when Mark Cuban was getting involved with it. So it's like you have Mark Cuban and big names involved. You have a ton of money from the VCs. You have attention from people, and you have an amazing product that I could show to any normal human being, and they're like, "That's dope." That my kids say, "That's dope." We used to breed horses. Me and my kids would breed horses, try to snipe someone who was trying to breed within their own stable or breed with a friend, right? And find a good cheap horse to breed with, and then name them things. So like we do talk about Bruno, Midnight Taco Bell. Like everyone got their different ones they're allowed to name. They one named after a Roblox game. It's like this was a family event. This was something that was incredible. And now we flash forward and we're here. It's like, again, it is harder to build a business, and I am I am very empathetic to how difficult it is to build a business. I am not discounting how hard it is. But to have such a great product and funding and a community and money running into it, and people willingly handing you $20,000 for a horse, and having big names who are interested in it, and having like that much attention, to go from there to here, it's bananas to me that we ended up here with such a great early especially because they were known as the innovators. They introduced these crazy breeding mechanics. This wasn't just CryptoKitties breeding a 1-to-1. This was breeding a living, breathing asset that could race, that would have stats and, algorithms that fell into racing statistics based on certain distances, and, everybody playing speculation and fan theories. And then here we are today. So, I'll get off my rant too, because I know we have some hands. We'll plan to hit Cruz, so probably around 9, because we're going to have the Zed team on, and then they jumped on us, so I don't think we have a special guest. So we'll flush the hands and get through there and talk a little bit of true stuff. Talk about someone really building in the space, which I'm really excited about. A lesson of not giving up, for that matter, and continuing to push through. But Circles, go ahead and get in here. Death Taxes and Circles having trouble with his mic.
I got you. Okay, let me get the headphones out. That way I don't sound atrocious.
It's just a tale as old as time.
All right, so I've realized that my headphones are absolutely shot. The AirPods, this is like the third pair. So I'm just going raw dogging on the speakerphone.
Can you drop your ETH or whatever wallet is easiest for you to convert to USD? Please drop it in the wallet. We'll raise $19.99 for Circles today to buy a pair of wired headphones. It's just went on too long.
So here's the problem. I bought a pair of wired headphones, and then I upgraded phones, and now I no longer have a Lightning port. It's a fucking USB-C or whatever the fuck they're called. So anywho,
all you need. That's like $4. Like, it's just, there's no excuses at this point. If you're going to talk on Spaces, we've got to get you at least a pair of $20 headphones that work with your phone.
I know. It's a problem. I'm working on it. Yes, the call is out there for a better pair of preferably wireless, but we'll get it. Anywho, so
no problem. You don't go wireless. You just use wired headphones. You suck up the cord. It's $20 and it'll sound crystal clear.
Yes, but my Wi-Fi is atrocious, and my phone only works in one spot, so I have to move around and then have the phone be in one spot in order to actually make this work. There are no good solutions, believe me. So looking at the Zed Run stuff more on a macro level, and you guys kind of stated that this is, the idea was, oh, you own these assets and they'll transfer forward. Well, if the small people aren't doing it, does that mean that those like AAA games are even going to be doing it? So what kind of, and the answer is probably no. They'll just say, hey, buy our new assets, and poo-poo if you have the old ones, we don't really care. So I guess my question is, would the solution be a third party coming in and being like, hey, we're going to go ahead and take over those assets and screw you, Zed, and we're going to show you how it's properly done, kind of. And I guess the issue with that is it takes money. So I don't know, just something that my brain was churning when this was kind of discussed a little bit in the forum yesterday.
So I love this thought, Circles. I I did not know. The thing about Circles, he is incredible because he is a smart guy, but he is a box of chocolates. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you're going to get shenanigans. Sometimes you're going to get thoughts. This is the big brain thought of the day right here, though. This is like the thought. Not necessarily even another game taking it over, which is certainly a possible thing. But forget that. Put that aside. Think about if somebody just offers literally anything to that community while the sentiment is down and finds a way to onboard. Like, if you have something that tangentially, I don't know what it is, so we're just sort of brainstorming on this one. Something...
It's there. Like Photo Finish they've taken a lot of the market share. This is the Ian. Maybe we should have Ian on and let him take his take. Ian's the CEO of Photo Finish, who's on Solana. I've said multiple times, like, you guys need to do a vampire attack. You do a vampire attack, you'll get the rest of that community over. Do a 1-to-1. Hey, you got these horses. We'll give you their game is vastly different. It's a much slower burn, and they can't do it exactly like that. What's happening now, Steve, is you have community members in Photo Finish that are basically they're dangling free horses to Zed players. Hey, come over. I'll give you one of my bred horses. Like if I truly do believe if Photo Finish doesn't do something soon, it is a massive missed opportunity. It's the lowest hanging fruit for a vampire attack, maybe in the history of crypto. You got a community that can't wait to find something else, find a new solution, and you've got a viable competitor who's just saying, "Oh, we don't need to do that." Maybe they don't, but man, if it were me, I would take the flood of new users.
Yeah, no, big fucking facts. And like that just shows that, like, I didn't know you had that conversation. I'm not super familiar with Photo Finish outside of, I think Photo Finish at one point reached out to me and I had some sort of token opportunity. I declined because it didn't line up and I wasn't as in the ecosystem. But like, man, like Photo Finish, or if there's a car racing game that actually comes out and works, right? I mean, I know that, we saw Riot Racers didn't, but there's, if there's, I don't know. Like some sort of gaming company that wants to get a community, to your point, that's tangentially or directly related, like a Photo Finish, just go and say, trade in your assets and get these. Could you imagine if Photo Finish, now again, the tricky part is, do they fuck over their existing community if they say, Cap, you come in and now you're a whale and you do awesome? Like, that's where the trick comes in. But like, man, if you can get in there and be like, hey, Zed Run community, here's what we're going to give you. And they give you some advantage to get started, some opportunity.
And it is happening. I'll go grab a tweet from Dan Chan, who has been a long time community member of Zed, also built a lot of those third-party racing tools. Blood Tool is another one, like, so it helps with breeding. And he spun up his own. It's called DNA Racing. So just to your point, it's more of like, think of like a futuristic motorcycle type, but similar like racing mechanics. And yeah, that he just came out and said basically they're doing some sort of vampire attack. Do you own a digital horse? Head to our eligibility page and see if you're eligible for a free bike and some racing cash. So others are doing it. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if that is the best strategy, because you're also talking about utility debt. To your point, not only you run the risk of potentially alienating your existing community, but also picking up a lot of baggage that of the community that largely is somewhat disgruntled or unhappy. I don't know. You can't do a 1-for-1. Probably the way to do it is just some sort of, you come over, we'll give you a blind draw or something like that. Like, man, if Zed even did that, if they just said, hey, for every Genesis, you're going to get a new Genesis horse, but it's going to be a blind draw. All your burned horses, all your bred horses are going into a burn, and you're going to get points or something. Like they to not have any plan and just pull the trustless bro card. That is what I'm taking the most issue with. It's like they had to know there was going to be pushback when you say, oh, your assets that you've paid in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars for, they're going away, and we're not going to tell you what you're going to get in return.
And I would even say, like, I don't know, like, I keep getting down to this idea of, like, not like when I think of the vampire attack, I don't know, like, I'm really curious how many people in that community also have Zed horses, because if they're in a horse racing community, there's a good chance they're also sitting on a bag of Zed pissed off. So it's like, I don't know, like, I just think about like the opportunity there that, and potentially, man, it's crazy to think I was at Disney World a couple of years ago and we were talking about like Zed Run and freaking Budweiser horses that people were buying on auction, and now we're here. But I don't know. I think that there's probably something. I mean, Budweiser, Stella Artois, they had major partnerships, Cap. It's crazy.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is definitely a fumble, and I know we want to get to hands here, so we'll keep the hands buttoned up, probably 30 seconds or less. And no offense to Shiba or Snowflake, but shout out to Veggie Dave in the chat. Joey snuck one in. If you've not participated on Zed, we're going to ask you to hold your comments. Like, if you've been active on the platform, sure, we'd love to hear how you're feeling. But if you've not participated on Zed, we're going to skip over and keep the conversation flowing this morning. We've had a lot of people that love to talk about everything, every topic we talk about, and some with have no baseline, no experience, and have never participated. That's not the best content for our show. So no disrespect, but if you're not an active Zed participant, if you've not used the platform, if you're not familiar with it, just go ahead and put your hand down and we'll move on.
Or if you have questions about it, like happy to answer because Cap was deep in the streets and I am as well. So if like there's a thought, be like, hey, but is this the case? Or ideas, always open to those. Because to the point, like Circles, whether Circles has participated in Zed or not, like banger point about like, potentially the vampire attack. And real quick, Cap, before we go to Shiba and then Snowflake on that, I'll say this. I mean, the other thing I'll throw out there is like the idea that like you could do a vampire attack maybe unrelated to Zed even. Like maybe something like it's just I keep thinking that if you can get people excited about something with that community, I guess like my thing I think about is like there's some communities, I'm not going to name names, that I would want nothing to do with as a founder and be like, no, like people would talk about like they're going to acquire this brand or Pudgy Penguins is going to acquire this brand. And I'm like, why? It has nothing to do with their brand. They'd have to build it. The community's already disgruntled. I know the Zed community is disgruntled, but I also know that maybe it's about something unrelated. Maybe it is about a vampire attack with the horse. Maybe it's a vampire attack with a current racing program. But the idea that you could potentially get the people who were creating Sports Center-like content to me, I just have to think some community can find a creative way to get those people excited and be like, for every horse you had, you get blank, or this is what we're going to do, or we're going to do a racing competition. Or there's got to be a creative person out there that can find a way to get that. And even if you get 15% of the Zed community and 5% of those passionate ones, that's a major win for a community. Like maybe this is a way to get some consolidation in our space into some things that they care about or drive them in a different direction. But I don't know. I got to think on this because like Circles has got my wheel spinning and it sounds like you thought about this as well. But I think we had Shiba, Snowflake, and Hab in that order. Shiba.
Again, I'm serious, Shiba. If you've not played on the platform, please put your hand out. I don't want to hear your opinion this morning. I would like, we're a little under the gun, and I see I invoked Ian, who I was referencing, the founder, CEO of Photo Finish. I'd much rather hear his take on this than someone who hasn't played a racing game on chain. So Shiba, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm going to boot you from the stage if you don't have any experience on the platform.
Okay, so I don't know what Cat. Once again, not wearing the mutant right off the bat, hesitant and crazy. I played Zed. I played a lot actually. So in the beginning, when I started off the game, no idea what the fuck I was doing. I actually went on a stream, one of the streams. I forgot the guy's name. I'd have to go look back because I don't really do Twitch as much anymore. But I won a horse, and it was a pink one, of course. Very beautiful horse. Put him in races, 8th place every time. I'm like, okay, maybe the horse just sucks. Maybe it's just like one of those breeded horses the streamers were giving away, and it just stunk. And then I got deep into it a little bit. Then I started realizing the distances had to do with something. This is back when you can actually sandbag your horse, when you could take him and figure out like the distance he's good in, just put him in those races and he'll actually place in the top 3 most of the time. And if you wanted to bring down your horse and bring it down to like a lower class where it would perform against maybe horses were good in that range, but they weren't like the top rank type of horses. Excuse me, I don't remember the types because it was
yeah,
so
but you're
long
right.
ago.
Just real quick, the term that I used earlier, I appreciate that, Shiba, because I used the term class down, and that's exactly what I was talking about when I said that. So I probably used a non-colloquial term, but class down basically is what Shiba said, where you intentionally lower your horse to win at certain races to maximize your spending ability. But go ahead, Shiba, continue.
Correct. And then they added the energy or whatever the hell it was called, whatever it was, to where if you did put your horse in a race and it did well and you kept doing a bunch of races, it would reduce the stamina, right? And then you have to wait. There was a time when you could put the horse back in. So I would literally spend a day or two sandbagging the horse, downgrading him all the way to the lowest I possibly can go. You couldn't take them all the way back to like where they started, beginner or whatever, or even the next rank up. But I know you could take it from like class 1 to class like 3
Get to the
in a
point.
day.
We need the whole hit on Zed dynamic.
Okay, let me finish. Once they changed that and they went to this whole new idea of max breeding, and then they increased the supply of the horses, and people didn't really like the game anymore because they couldn't really do the downgrade anything. They lost a lot of players, a lot of OG people that really liked the different ways you can interact with the platform in the games. then we lose users, very similar to a lot of these games. So just like Stephen Cap said, I think the company would need to capitalize. You would need to reduce the supply of horses somehow, burning them, a token you can use in the game, maybe a new class of horses, obviously a new strategy trait-wise. So I think would have to revamp it to a degree. Not totally, just revamp the game in general. Then they bring back, like you said, the OG, maybe 5 or 10% of players, and you get people streaming them again, and then you can actually use the platform. What I would love to see is something like Zed Run at a racetrack. You could watch horses, but at the same time, you could gamble on crypto horses and you can watch them on a screen. That would be ideal. I'm not saying that would be like, a major breakthrough, but that would be something that I think could definitely happen.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of back in the day when, ZG, our buddy Zed Gazette, who, actually was one of my intro onboarding people into Web3. And I actually have a special shout out for him in the back of my book because, he would talk about crypto in a way that I understood and, was one of the smarter people early on in the space. So I was just in awe of when he would talk on Spaces. And I remember him saying something very similar where he's like, he would picture, Cap, and I think you too, the idea of, you going, to a casino in Vegas and sitting around with Zed Run horses going in front of you and being able to watch that. And like that concept, that idea was so cool. The thought of being like, yeah, like we're sitting in a Vegas casino, placing bets, sitting down. We've done the research that so many people do from like various, sites. Maybe you have some accessible sites that you could use over there, but the sharps would have other things. Like that was what we were dreaming of, and we never got it. So I think that was like the dream to Shiva's point and to your point about, what this could have been, yet here we are. But let's go Snowflake, and then I'll let you kind of hit Ian, and then we'll go with Caruso and hit a little true stuff. Or no, sorry, have after Snowflake. I forgot we had the hand. Snowflake, get in here.
Sure. Good morning. Everybody asks like why founders did this, why founders did that, and we need to look like in the human behavior in general. And when you look at some founders and like some successful, stories, it's kind of start to go down. It feels like once they reach certain limit, they'll like slightly slow ragging the project. And if it doesn't work, then they start changing the roadmap the way that community actually don't want to change it, right? Going like against the community even, or like picking up like one voice and like following it and saying like, yeah, this was idea for community when it wasn't. And like in this case, you think there is other games that also involve breeding. If you do research, you see what goes good, what's not going good. It's not the original concept. Like if they really, really, truly believe in like another success in the long term versus like, okay, now I go with my other previous life, with the money I earned, then like there's so many options. And yes, you have to listen to community if you want to really expand. And losing this opportunity with so many like engaging clients, let's say, it's just like a nonsense. But again, it just all comes to human behavior. Like some teams, in the crisis or something, reducing the team, doing research, hiring people who like know like what to do in certain situations, like have the knowledge in certain games and certain tactics, like development of the actual direction. But it's all up to like what they decide to do. And if they have this tight circle, and kind of like dying vibe inside it, like there is no future. And you cannot change human behavior that easily, and unfortunately, like somebody mentioned before, like what do? Do I sue them? Like contact some lawyer if you want to know the options. But like that's what end up being with some of the projects. They got sued. They signed like NDA to non-disclosure after they got sued, so people who sue them cannot talk about it, and that's it, right? But again, like Web3, it's so different, so you can't really shut up too many people. Like people will be vocal, people will speak out, no matter how many like shielders they hire saying like this person is incorrect, that's not what happened. Like the sentiment, even for those who not talking, like it's there and it's not changing.
Yeah.
And you need to listen to silence.
And I think to your point, then the sentiment becomes hard to get back once you've lost it. And I think that's what you run into is the sentiment becomes really hard to get back once you've lost it in those situations. And, there's only so many options people have in these scenarios. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're hearing a lot of people's voices this morning sounding almost despondent about how it's going down, because it is for sure it's a tough scenario, and there's only so many things that you can do in these circumstances. So I think it puts everyone in a tough spot. And to your point, like the options become very limited.
The best point, I feel like, sell the company to someone who actually take over completely, and not even like a gutter gang did, right? Like that the person took over, right? More like completely 100%, don't stay involved at all. If they can let complete, and instead of trying to milk one way or another, like just sell it for wherever you think your max milking will be. Because if they think like everybody is a cow without the brain or something, it's not how it works. Like the best thing they can do for community maybe is just sell the company completely. That's it. Instead of saying like beautiful words that everybody wants to hear, it's not gonna work.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a tough spot that they're in, and it's like, well, they bought it for a reason, and they want to run it for a reason. They have a plan for a reason, but maybe it's like Cap said. I mean, I just think time and time again, and I've seen this, and I'm not going to name names, with various communities, that you see that these communities don't realize the consequences of, or these leaders don't realize the consequences of the community and how they're going to react, and then they seem so surprised by it, and it's insane to watch. Hav, let's let you get in here. Hav, go ahead and get in here. GM.
Hey, GM guys. I'll give up one of my burners accounts. This is VG. I ran the Vega website for a while. My Twitter Spaces don't really work on my personal account, so I have this one. But I did want to bring up kind of a different topic, and it's really good to go after Snow, because I've seen a lot of pushback on people saying that they should reward players for past experiences and not going forward on the platform. But I would ask anyone that's upset with the platform, if they rewarded us, wouldn't we just dump our horses and assets in the future? So just kind of your opinion on, would you guys do that? Would you be loyal to the platform and hold on to your assets in the hopes that it will get better?
I mean, if it's just as a straight question and answer, and ZG, good to hear you back there. Good to hear your voice on stage, actually. I would say I would, Cap, you may be different than me because maybe you have a different experience. If they made the platform work or gave me some sort of rewards towards the platform, like I still want to do Zed Run. I still would do a Zed Run horse. I would do a race today if I felt like I was, it was worthwhile use of my time, or we were enjoying it again. And I was I would absolutely stay on the platform. Would you, Cap?
I would stay on the platform. I definitely would yeet some of I way overexposed. Not even like in the realm of being slightly overexposed. Just way too deep. And it was always, the reason I'm so deep is I was always holding on for that moment. At first it was the Zed token, and that was, well, not a rug. It was very underwhelming based on the assets I held. And so I'm like, well, it can't get any worse. And so it was always, then we lost the third party marketplace, and it was really hard to sell and buy horses. And I'm like, well, it was always waiting for the right moment to take some off the table. I certainly would be taking some off the table, but like Steve, I actually enjoyed the game. And if they can fix the broken parts, which I believe they can, I mean, there's even been so many suggestions from the community. Most of the community is like, just roll the game back. Just roll it back a couple versions ago where it was fun. People were racing, people were breeding. Like most of us know when they broke the game. If you've been playing, like just roll it back to that prior state. Let us at least. Like 2 versions of Zed would be better than killing this. Like some are saying, hey, just keep the old version running, build your new version, and people can choose. I don't know that's the answer, but I'm pretty confident the way they've communicated what they believe to be the answer is poorly communicated at best.
Yeah, for sure. Joey, I'll let you get in here, then I'll throw it back to you, Cap, or Ian. Ian's waving a hand, so I'm going to go to Ian before we go to Joey, just because I know the hand's not up. But Ian, I'll Cap, I'll let you talk, Ian, a little bit, and go from there.
Yeah, it's been a while. Even I don't know if someone pinged you or you caught the bat signal, but appreciate you jumping on this morning. Would love to maybe do a more formal, deeper dive and have you on as S one morning when timing works. But I'm sure you've been paying attention. I've seen this. I made the suggestion of waiting for that vampire attack from Photo Finish. Not to feel free to take conversation wherever you'd like. I just and not asking you to bash on your competitors. Rather, just curious what you are on this conversation we've been having.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of a. I was very shocked for sure. For people that don't know, we run Photo Finish. It's kind of the competitor to Zed, I guess. We've been out for a little over a year, and definitely have been watching Zed so closely. But at the same time, I know those guys. That I met them back in 2018 before their product was out, and we were like discussing sharing our racing engine with them, like as a licensing deal, because they didn't have racing working at that time. So I just always loved that they were kind of, trying new things. But I also, as a design team, we could see the flaws in that economy with the sort of infinite breeding, and I just never expected that they would shut it down. I really thought that they were going to, announce, to be honest, a lot of our mechanics like aging or something that was going to go down, and then I'm like, all right, now it's going to be a fight. I was just really ready for a battle, and for it to basically just be like, well, now we're shutting down, and the new battle might be a year from now. It's a new product, but definitely shocked, and not any kind of tap dance on grave, because as I mentioned to the team, like I thrive in competition, and when I was on Madden for many years, it was actually a real bummer when the license came to me, because I liked having 2K5 and ESPN, NFL, and all that stuff there to battle against, and have that sort of thing that you can compare against. And I think one of the problems that somewhat happens to your user base is if they don't have another game to compare against, they start comparing you to like a mythical unicorn that doesn't exist, and it gets even harder to like keep people happy, because there's nothing else out there. So it's just basically like they compare you to the perfect game ever. So anyway, I really wish the best. I have nothing but compassion for you guys, people that invested. I mean, the guy that got up on their Twitter Spaces, I couldn't believe it. He said, "Hey, I spent $800,000 on horses. Is there anything going to be done for me?" And I was just like, my heart just broke. So obviously for us, yeah, we're Photo Finish is here, and happy to take on anyone that wants their horse racing fix. We've got tons of horses to loan people or give out or have them try the game. But I'm really not interested in, as our community says, sort of ambulance chasing. You guys process the loss and the grief, and if you want to play, it's fine. But really, for me, I'm just bummed. I think the multiple horse racing games helps the community, helps the world. Zed and Photo Finish were so different that it didn't really look to me like, oh, we have to eat each other's lunch, to actually like feel like we were growing. I feel like we could both grow the pie. But yeah, it's shocking, for sure. And the vampire thing is an interesting one. I mean, that was a pitch like to Photo Finish many years ago. Was that bring your Zed horse into Photo Finish and we'll burn it on ETH and remint it on Solana was an idea. But we never wanted to do that because it would give value to Zed. So we were really like, well, that would make the horses valuable. We didn't want people breeding in Zed and then bringing it over. So the math was too hard for us to balance, like any kind of vampire attack. But I agree with what you guys are both saying. Like, someone creating a game with those horses, the community of Zed is unreal. I mean, like, even seeing the posts of people saying, well, it's been a rough go, but I think it's the right decision, and I'll just wait it out and keep playing. I mean, that's wild to think that many people are still like so mad and so frustrated. It's been years of like sort of, anger, and they're still like, all right, well, at least I'd love to play something though. I still want to try. They haven't lost everyone yet. So yeah, anyway, I'd love to have the Zed community come play Photo Finish and everything, but I would love for Zed to get it together and get something going.
I wouldn't cross your fingers. But I was going to say the thing is, I think a lot of people in NFT communities have that, where we have people who talk about NFT communities that are clearly on the way down, and we haven't heard anything good, and they're filling in the blanks. And I think Zed runs no different. I would say this. The one thing I would say is that not a bad time now, because you're like, we don't want to do a vampire attack and give Zed value. I don't think you have that worry as much right now. So not the worst idea, because I'll be honest, like, the thing that you run up against a little bit is because the experience was like, well, on one side of my mouth, I'm like, oh, if they fix Zed, I've got all these horses, I'll make it work. On the other hand, it's like starting over. And Cap, I want your opinion on this. The idea of starting over on a new platform is actually way too daunting for me with the time I put in there. It's a complete fallacy, but that's one of the reasons why some sort of vampire attack might make sense, because at least people like me and certainly potentially people like Cap, I want to get your take on this, Chris, is like the idea that like I would start over on a new platform and then be like, well, what if this happens again? Regardless of what anybody tells me, is I think a very real thing people go through. And Cap, I don't know, do you have that? It's almost like somebody who's been in a relationship and was hurt and won't get in another one, right? It's like, would you, Cap, if no vampire attack, are you going to get involved in something like photo finish? Are you like, no, there's too much baggage there for me, I'm out? But you would, and would you, as the two-part question, Cap, number one, is there too much baggage there for you to start over on a new platform from scratch? And then two, if there was a vampire attack, would you go over and try it?
I don't know if there's like, yeah, I would both, I guess. And I think my, like the baggage you refer to, it's not that I'm giving up on horse racing games on chain. It's really rubbed me the wrong way for on-chain gaming. I go back to what I said earlier, like that is the antithesis of on-chain assets, that they can just be vaporized and you not get compensated fairly for them. Like Ian used the Madden reference, like, that that narrative of, oh, like, you build up your Madden team, your Madden Ultimate team, and then a new game drops, you got to do it all over again. Like the whole reason, part of the benefit of on-chain assets is that you don't have to do it all over again. I'm not opposed to learning a new platform. The current system is broke. Has it always had some challenges? Yes. And respect to Cadet Racing in the chat, I will quote, says, let me just grab it exactly. I'm so wrong, right? Chris Jordan is so wrong right now. There was never a time in Zed where people weren't bitching and complaining. It was always in various states of broken. I do agree. People have always been bitching in Zed about something, but my opinion, my perspective is the game was a lot of fun back in the day. Like they could not
every not to interrupt, but every game has that. Every successful game has communities. That's part of the fun sometimes. You bitch with your friends.
One of the memories I have is the copy pasta from Zed General Discord. That was, if anyone's got that, drop that in the chat. But the guy's legs shaking. Like their drops were horrendous. But they admitted that. Like, hey, we're not a drop company. We botched this. The game itself, the community was vibrant. In the game, I had a lot of fun. So much fun in that I was giving up massive gains by not trading as much as I should have been during the bull of 21 because it was fun. And the broken states then, I don't think it was an inhibitor to growing the game and individuals having fun. Whereas now, I attempted. I went on after I heard the news. I went on to quote unquote engage the platform as they're asking or requiring to get full benefit when they switch over to the new system. It's just hard. It's a clunky lobby. It's like, I don't know, man. I feel as it's the last few changes have taken steps backwards instead of forward. And this was, kind of the proverbial final straw, I guess, that it's not done yet. Maybe they come back and they reverse course and they communicate more clearly what these assets will lead to in the new game. But yeah, it's pretty disappointing for someone that and I think that's part of my frustration, Steve, is rode through all those prior broken states, right? It was like always given benefit of the doubt and they'll get this right. And after not hearing something for, 6 to 9 months, and this is what we get, that's where probably the root of my disappointment.
Yeah, I think we need to have like a full-on Zed panel discussion day, maybe either before or after the interview, just because I know we're going to get the we'll get the current team up here, hopefully, to answer some questions about the direction they're going. And I mean, we said this before. I've said this about, to some degree, but the DAO can get me back and Ape Chain can get me, and I'm excited about Ape Chain, despite it, some experience with the DAO. The DAO I've been out on, but the reason I make this analogy is like the worst thing you can have is people who have just kind of given up and don't keep up with it and become apathetic. And that's what I became with Zed Run. Like, I know, Cap, you've been paying attention on the periphery, but like, really the lack of races and participation shows you're sitting there hoping for the magical internet bag to come, but like at the same time, you've effectively given up on them. And it's like, that is the worst thing you can have happen. Like, even if, because to go on the comment of like, hey, people always bitched about Zed Run. Absolutely. But if people are bitching about your platform and other people on your platform are arguing with the people bitching, you're actually in a pretty good spot. Every single thing is going to have arguments. Like, again, like Yeah, well, actually, I won't get into it. I was going to, give a sports analogy example, but it's going to take us down a rabbit hole. But people are always going to bitch about, a product as it is, right? Like I've never seen anything go like the friggin' like. Again, I'm just going to stop making the analogy. Every time I go to an analogy, I'm like, this is going to take us down a rabbit hole. Point being, like, there are always going to be complaints about anything. People will complain about the new Madden. People will complain about the new NCAA. People are going to complain about every single and like people complain about when you see preseason football or whatever, and I'm like, I don't care. There's football on my screen and I can bet on it. It's like, but then other people complain about it. It's like, so I just think there's always going to be these things that happen. But the fact that the community, either A, it's just a wave of negative responses, or B, it's crickets. That's what you don't want. Joey Val's get in here, and then we'll hit some true stuff, I think, and then we'll definitely be talking Zed again in the future, I am sure. But Joey Val's, go ahead and get back in here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about True Stub. I have some questions, but real quick for Ian, I don't know if you heard earlier, but my family owns race horses, and we're big into horse racing. And I've often wondered, and I like what Cap said about maybe bringing you back for another show, because I do have some questions. But just if you could answer this real quick, do you have any data with your users on how many are strictly digital horse racing fans and actual horse racing fans? Like, what is the overlap that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, nothing like hard, but we have run like a survey early on. I think we run a couple of surveys on, maybe 1,000 people. So we got a decent, I don't know if it's statistically significant, but a surprising amount were not horse racing fans, 25%. Much more were into poker and sports betting, DFS type stuff. That was more the audience. And a lot of them weren't really crypto heads either. So it's kind of a range, right? There's you got a third of the people in there that are hardcore horse people. You got a third of the people in there that are maybe DFS and fantasy, and then another third that are just crypto maxis that stumbled in and now love yield or the DeFi concepts of it, or what have you.
Yeah, my dad and I, we talk again because of the horse racing. We kind of joke about how they keep coming out with all these laws with horse racing about how oh, you can only whip the horse so many times, and you can only run them so often, and you can't use this and that. And then we joke about how one day you're not even going to really even see them race. It's just going to be pretend racing. And I was like, well, actually, there's this thing called on-chain horse racing where it is kind of like pretend racing. So, and I don't know if we're going to lose real horse racing anytime in our lifetime, but like I said, I was just, and I do have a ton of other questions. So I would love it if they bring you back one day and we talk about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely make a commitment to that. We'll bring Ian back. We'll talk more Zed, especially there's definitely interest in the room. There's interest in the chat. It's always fun when we strike a chord with the audience that we didn't know was there. When we look down and see sort of the comments and, Lacey, every single thing they implemented was a disaster. Nothing was flawless, from drops to Budweiser to getting finals runs without a hitch. It was a daily thing.
Steve, can I also say Hizzy's example in the war room about when is somebody going to come out with car racing, so that way you can just place advertisements all over your car in real life. That was an awesome suggestion from Hizzy in the war room.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's a cool thing to see people actually getting excited and involved about this. Dort's got the VR GM of the horse in the actual house from when that virtual thing was a thing. I remember when Ebbs tweeted one on a beach and everyone was like, oh my God, it's crazy. Wisco Doug is a huge Zed Maxi. I feel very burnt. I moved to Photo Finish. And Ian with full conviction, maybe how Ian found us. Although I think Ian was in here before that. Can't wait for Ian to hit the stage here. So we'll definitely do that. But I get excited because you forget how many people are really just OGs, right, in friggin' this space who actually went through the trenches with us. And it's amazing when you meet people who have that, background that you didn't even know about. And so, appreciate that. And we'll discuss this again for sure, because it's clearly a topic that I think, it's an important topic to discuss, an important healing moment, I think, for us as a space still a little bit, because it was such an early big thing. Look, that said, I want to pivot for a minute. Later than expected, but what a crazy conversation, Caruso. Before we dive into True Stub and everything you're building there, since you've taken over with BCI, any thoughts on the Zed conversation we've had so far?
Also, if Ian dips, just want to say thanks for jumping up on impromptu, and we'll hit your DM, see when our schedules can align for a future date.
Yeah, happy to do it. Yeah, they pinged me in Discord, and I was like, oh, they're talking about you. I was like, oh, cool. I typically am up and I try to tune in with you guys, but this summer, I get to sleep in. It's nice.
100%. No, appreciate you jumping by, and we'll definitely have you back. But Caruso, any thoughts on the Zed thing? Because you've been around the block. We were on, you probably don't even remember, forever ago, we were on like a Top Shot stream together in like friggin' 2021. And I was like, man, this Caruso guy's a big deal. I'm excited for this opportunity to be on this stream. But so you've been around the block. Did you participate in Zed, and any thoughts on everything so far?
Absolutely. And GM, everybody, really, really stoked to be here. Thank you for having me. And no, I still have about 30 horses in my stable. My OG bags were Top Shot, Apes, Pixel Vault, and Zed. And I was I still have all those bags, but I was convinced that I was going to be able to just sustain my mortgage off of Zed. I was making more money than I was making at Tesla. Just by breeding horses. And it's actually, Joey, my dad doesn't own horses, but he worked for TVG, the horse racing network, and was the dude who was one of the guys who pioneered being able to gamble from your TV remote just from your couch. And he was so excited when I was doing all this weird Web3 stuff, and then all of a sudden we had something to connect on. It was actually like one of the better onboarding experiences for all of Web3, because you're able to breed a horse for someone, gift it to them, and like that's what's crazy too is like it became a sustainable economy for me, where like I purchased a few of my initial Genesis, and then I had a system where anytime I would breed a mare, I would keep the mare. Anytime I bred a male, I would sell the male. But then you're just able to rinse and repeat that. And then every breed cycle, you would have more horses. And I think it's interesting. I think a lot of the pain that the community led in, Cap, I'd be curious for your thoughts on this as well. Stem from like the initial precedent, because the gaming was fun. The race was such a fun experience, but a lot of the initial onboarding wasn't around the racing. It was like, oh my God, you can make so much money off of breeding. And that's like, there are a lot of people who were only just using the platform to breed, not participating in it. And I think that was the initial hit when they got rid of the, when they lowered those breeding fees. It completely, that's when I was still racing for a bit, but even as someone who really enjoyed the platform, it became way less enticing just off of that precedent that was set. And I also just want to really shout out Ian. I think it's an incredible look that the Zed team didn't show up and that you showed up here. I've heard nothing but great things about your platform. It makes me extremely bullish.
No, that's an interesting take on it too. I think like, I forgot about like there was entire people just basing it on breeding, and like and to your point, like it created economies of different ways to participate. And it was one of the things that I thought was really interesting about Zed, to your point, is that there were economies built within it. We talk about Blast building an ecosystem and what makes it interesting, with the content flywheel, to the loyalty program, to the gambling, to the, jackpot, to all these things. And when you look at like something like a Zed Run, Zed Run, like you had the creators, some of which were racers, but a lot of them were like sports commentators where, hey, maybe they were pretty good at racing or they were fine at racing, but they weren't the pros. And they were able to commentate on it because they knew depth of information about things. Then you had the breeders who were always trying to, who were putting out things into the world. Then you had the creators of the tools, the picks and shovels, the know your horses, the things that would give you all the information on your stable. And then you had the people who casually participated. Like I always say, like, I'm probably a target consumer for most people. I'm a now 41-year-old male with, 2 kids and a dog, and like to, spend discretionary income collecting and having fun with things. And my exact experience with Zed was I wasn't trying to get rich. I was trying to participate for a little bit of money here and there, occasionally win races, and our team would, we would celebrate, have my kids be competitive over whose horse they named did better, and just simply participate casually and show my friends and family. And the dream that, Ev's put out here one day of like having the horses racing on a table and going in a circle is like a VR type thing, just kind of like his dreams of that versus, doing it on, but even doing it on my television and showing, whether it was my parents or my family and friends, like Zed was the thing in June and July of 2021. I showed everybody. And while people would be like, I don't get why I'm collecting a GIF when I would talk about a Top Shot moment, or I don't get why I'm collecting a video, when I showed them Zed and explained it to them, everybody's like, oh, so you get to, without being rich, you get to participate in horse racing? It's like, yeah. And immediately I was like, damn, Zed should be doing Facebook ads to like the Kentucky Derby and other fans of other things and getting on horse racing fans. But something that you said, Caruso, there, which I think is an interesting nuance, and I, not to stay off topic, but I'd be curious your take on this, is you mentioned like, the financial model of getting people in. And it's interesting because my big contention with Top Shot for years, and still is, and with All Day, was that the people they went out with are crypto native people that didn't understand the product they were buying. If somebody is buying a, Darius Garland moment, who doesn't know who Darius Garland is, and they're just buying it because they think they're going to sell it to someone else for more, who's also speculating they're going to sell it to someone else for more, that is the wrong base. Versus if you onboard basketball fans similar to, and by the way, I fell into this. I'm not a major basketball fan. I know it to some degree. I like sports, but I was buying players I didn't know, and I was selling and flipping and ripping packs and going on the market and looking, like I would look for debut moments, like rookie moments and debut moments. And I had a whole collecting strategy on this thing, trying to like based on what I thought was going to have value in the future, based on what the past had value. And there'd be players I didn't know that I would be stacking because I believed that they were going to go up $1 in value and I could sell. And that's the wrong way to build the platform. And I think NFL All Day, similarly, like they went to crypto native people, and I know they need to test the platform, but you need to have people who are going to buy a Josh Allen moment because they want to own a Josh Allen moment because they live in Buffalo and maybe they have a chance to win a signed jersey owning it, not, selling a Josh Allen moment to somebody who, lives in Texas, doesn't watch sports, and is simply, trying to flip the moment because they got early access because they're in Dapper. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but Cruz, I'm curious your thought when you talked about the financial incentives that were put alongside when Zed came out. Do you think that financial incentives oftentimes, while they can be a nice thing to say as an upside, were and are overplayed, and that attracts the wrong audience?
Absolutely, Neil. I think that's the take for sure. The wonderful comp with Top Shot as well, because it was the same thing. And as much as I'm a huge NBA fan. Top Shot was my light bulb moment. I was into crypto for a few years and even heard about digital authentication, had seen, Super Rare and all this. But once I saw Top Shot, I was like, oh, I get sports collectibles. I know the NBA, and I understand that these are actually a real thing now. And that's when it was game over. And then I get in there and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much money to be made. And that was when it was it got crazy. And just even it's the same thing. Like I still participate in Top Shot a bit, and I still hold I'm a bag holder. I'm a diamond head for better and for worse. We could talk about that with where we're at with Wicked Craniums now too, like to the point where I acquired the collection. We're carrying it, but I think whether financial is definitely going to be one of the strongest points, but I think it comes down to the onboarding mechanics, whether that is through the financial incentive or whatnot. You need to be thinking about the long term. And to your point, Steve, like who is the actual demo that you want on this? Because the typical demographic that we have coming on currently, people are chasing airdrops. They're chasing. Let's be real. Like in Web3 right now, meme coins are dominating. We're in a casino. Like obviously, there's underlying tech that's really exciting. There's platforms that are happening. There's stuff like what Ian's doing, like carrying the torch and moving it forward. Like even from what I've come to understand, like they're actually approaching their mechanics in a much more healthy, sustainable way. But to your point, yes, the financial incentives. You need to. It's like it's kind of blown out of distortion in terms of our expectations and what you think you deserve, what I think I deserve as a DGen.
Absolutely. So with that said, and I appreciate the perspective and the thought, just because you are a true builder in this space and are working on a lot. one, just for those who don't have a quick, brief background of you, you gave a little bit of background on what you did in this space and how you came on. I would love for you to give like people a flyover of like your background, like on a TLDR, and then why acquire Wicked Craniums and how that correlates to turning it into. And by the way, full disclosure, I'm an advisor on this, so people know when I'm asking questions, like this is something I believe in enough to be involved with. But the TrueStub part, like talk about your like sort of back, like why acquire Wicked Craniums, and then how that correlates to a ticketing ticketing engine or platform, I guess would be the right term, and then what that looks like.
No, I appreciate it, and for the record, the acumen that you bring is so incredible. It's an honor and a privilege being able to chop it up with you like we do. And my TLDR, I'm in a weird amalgamation of music and tech. My 10,000 hours initially were as a touring and producing artist, and then I fell into a startup run that led me to Tesla, where I was managing about 2% of the North American pipeline from factory to delivery, up until the pandemic hit. And that's when I left to go full send crypto. I started consulting for different artists and labels on the convergence of music and Web3, launched the first NFT collection for a record label back in the day, and then started working with Wicked Craniums pretty early on in September. The collection launched in June of 2021. I mean, it was, being a day one Bored Ape, I thought I would never change my PFP. When I saw those Wicked Craniums, coming from a music, like more of a heart, like a set. I mean, these days I listen and play a lot more, but rock and roll is at my core. So seeing those skeletons, especially at a time when everything within the space was so cute, it was like, okay, this resonates. This is hard. I can rock with this. And the next thing you know, fall in love with the community. We have all sorts of different artists and incredible creators coming in. And then when I joined, it was pretty easy to establish that the community was built around music, experience, and events. And I'm really proud of what I was able to accomplish just being a member of the team for a long time. Everything from a partnership with Alt Press, we worked with UNICEF, made them some money on a beautiful charity. Partnered up with 5B Artists and Media, the team that manages everyone from like Megadeth and Slipknot. It was basically what that led to was carving out the Wicked Ticket utility. I know that utility is turned into a gross word in the space, but I will die on the utility hill. I think really there's a lot there. I mean, what this does for you is an important question. And some with art, if that it elicits a reaction, an emotional feeling, that's it. That's a utility. That's it doing something. I also understand that the art isn't enough for what this underlying tech is capable of. That's not necessarily what it's about. It's a small factor. And this era that we're going into now, in my opinion, is really like an era of products. Like, what is the underlying tech? It's not about the crypto. It's about what does what can the crypto do tucked in the back end. And so kind of to fast forward, with the Wicked Ticket utility, if you are a Wicked Cranium, then you have access to a list of shows. You could right now, I think we have like Nicki Minaj, Blink-182. I know we had 21 Savage, Rolling Stones last month, but we have about 12 different artists every month, shows all around the world, where just for being a holder, you can get into the show for free. Oftentimes you get extra access and all sorts of goodies. We've gotten our community into over 300 festivals, concerts, and shows around the world. We've also thrown over 10 of our own events. So really, like, Wicked Craniums was a major precursor for what we're doing here with TrueStub, just really being a Web3 community that's galvanized around live events and music. So cut to the end of 22 going into 23, I was talking with the founders of Wicked Craniums, and they were like, we're thinking about selling. We're not sure what we want to do. Do you want to take over the company? And I was really honored by that. But what I decided to do is start my own company here and start a Delaware C Corp here in the States, acquire the IP, and then I brought in some music industry legends to really help shape out this concept for True Stub and what we can do on a larger level with something even bigger than a collection. So that gets to the True Stub platform, where we are turning your ticket stub into a time capsule that unlocks rewards. True Stub, it amplifies events, unlocks rewards, unleashes the ultimate fan experience. I could get deep into it for a while, on a TLDR, Web 2 front end, Web 3 back end, that basically makes tightens the fan creator experience and makes it way easier for promoters to be able to understand their demographics and work with them.
Yeah. So how do you intend on implementing something like that? So talk about like the things you can earn on the platform, what it is. I know the launch announcement is up top, by the way. Give True Stub a follow. And, you hit on some of the things at a high level. Bring it down a level in elevation. Like, talk about the experience that's broken when you go to maybe a concert or an event, or an experience that maybe has the opportunity to be disrupted.
No, thank you. And absolutely. So out the gate, talking from an experience point, the ticket stub is gone. That ticket stub was a beautiful, tangible connection to an otherwise ephemeral experience. And whether it's all the shows you go to, all of your experiences, that makes up who you are. And if you pay enough, if you care enough to pay for a ticket to a show, you're more than halfway up the totem pole to superfan. And when you go to that show, you are a part of something way bigger than you, way bigger than the artist. You're a part of a tribe. You're a part of a community. So there's like a ton of cross references to what we're doing in Web3 here. And with that in mind, it was a really beautiful kind of flow, going from, what can we do for Wicked Cranium, for the Wicked Craniums community, to this is just what an artist needs for their community, to this blows up way bigger than even music. We can also go into sports, we can go into conventions, Comic-Cons, but just it starts with the ticket stub, making sure that you can have that tangible connection to an otherwise ephemeral experience. Then from there, you take it to the next level, because when you're at that show, you're completely like, there's this incredible energy. It's a euphoric feeling when you are a part of something, like when the artists are in the pocket and you're just dancing, you're free, even if you're having a bad time, like that's an experience that's in your brain. And for you to be able to save those memories. So that's where we take it another step with the time capsule function. You're actually, so not only are you able to have a beautiful collectible version of your ticket stub with unique art, but you're actually able to flip it over, and then it turns into a time capsule where the artist, the brand, can upload some of their own content, whether it's the audio from the show, the official poster. But what I think is even cooler is you're able to put yourself into the ticket stub now. You're able to upload all of your own content, your own photo, video, write your own text in there. Let's say, Steve, you and I went to a show. Steve got a little too drunk. I could say that because it wouldn't happen. We know this guy. But if that was the case, I could literally take a picture of him, being a little slouched over and like make a funny comment and save that there. And anytime I think about that show, I can go back and reference and look at the pictures easily. And then I can take it another level. I can share it with other people that were at the show. Not that I put Steve on blast, but let's say you got a great video of the guitar solo. If you were to post that on your socials, a small percentage of your of your followers actually give a damn about that artist. But if you're connecting it up with other people that were at the show, you're going to get a better dopamine hit. Those people actually care. Matter of fact, you're probably going to be making new friends, making new connections. And that's what gets us into the societies. So not only is this a time capsule, but it also unlocks rewards and is a key into a token-gated servers, where it's basically an exclusive club where if you cared enough to go to the show, or the artist deems you of a certain caliber of fan, they're going to give you a pass into an exclusive pocket where we have a gamified loyalty program where everything from free tickets, VIP upgrades, merch, meet and greet, discounts. These are the things that you're able to get, Steve. And sorry it took me so long to get there. And I know that Joey's had his hand up.
No. It's I just to play it back, and then we'll go to Joey. So you're basically talking about a ticketing system where it's like you are in the gate. You are able to codify your memories in there in various ways. It's something like I've talked about. It's funny because before Crusoe, I even knew he was building this. I talked about this not with just event tickets, but even with plane tickets where it's like you fly, you land in a place. So, who knows, maybe a true stub, true stub client in the future is, an airline who's been able to say, like, put your memories and remember when you flew place to place. But like I probably should have saved that for an advisor meeting. I don't know why that just popped into my head as we were talking, but like the idea of an airline using TrueStub as like an actual platform is also less involved as far as like the actual rewarding factor, which I'll hit on in a second that you said, but it gives, the potential opportunity at a high level for someone to codify their trip and also remember always when it was and have it in one solid place. But the point being, like, one, codify memories. Two, have your memento of your ticket forever. So it's not like, oh, I put my ticket into a frame and that was that, right? Three, it gives data and information to the artist to be able to find out who their true fans are. Go ask Mr. Beast who his top fan is. He doesn't know. But when you go ahead and ask, a company that is utilizing TrueStub or a band who's utilizing TrueStub who their top fans are, they know who bought the most merch, cared the most, got the most points, and used those points on them. So the idea that you could become a super fan through a platform, it's funny because I always said artists should do this on an individual level. And then in talking to Caruso on it, I had this aha moment. It's like, no, an artist doing this at an individual level is so cumbersome on a one-to-one basis. They would try different blockchains, different opportunities, different things. This instead is giving you the opportunity to say, there's one solution that artists could use. And again, I mean, they're able to engage with it and then have those conversations with their fans on a one-to-one level. Imagine if your favorite band sent you a cameo, like a cameo video. People pay for cameo videos. Imagine just by being a top fan, they sent you a cameo video. They thanked you. You could show your friends. You share that on social media because they know you attended. They know you bought a bunch of merch. It's not just like, hey, tweet at us and figure out if you're a top fan. So this is the aha moment for me. And this is like the future of what ticketing is going to be one way or another. And the fact that TrueStub's working on it with the platform is pretty cool to me. But Joey Valls, go ahead and get in here. I know I saw your hand fly up.
Yeah, so back in 2022, I had conversations with multiple people about getting tickets on chain, and I have a friend from my past experience of working in Miami at all the different nightclubs who's still very big in the space, and we had conversations about tickets, and he educated me, and we talked about this in the war room. Like, the ticket industry is worse than the mob. Like, the Live Nation, Ticketmaster, like these organizations, they control everything because they can go to venues and say, hey, you're only going to sell your tickets through Live Nation and here's $10 million for it, right? Like they literally will pay venues to only sell tickets through them. So I guess my question is, do you envision your product as an add-on to the existing ticket companies, or are you genuinely trying to replace a Live Nation or a Ticketmaster and go to venues and say, hey, don't sell your tickets on Live Nation, sell them through us? And if that's the case, how do you intend to like penetrate that market?
Joey, wonderful question. And Steve, just to your thank you for summarizing that so beautifully. I recognize I'm a little too deep. I want to hit all the details, but to your point, it's for the first time you're able to, if you are bringing more value as a fan, you are getting recognized and getting that value back, and that's what we're calling a virtuous cycle. It's really exciting. But Joey, to your point, that's really just it. Ticketmaster, Live Nation, they own about 80% of the market, and it's not even mafia-like. They literally are a mafia. My co-founder actually ran a company called Virtuous Ticketing for 9 years, and they started doing enough numbers that they pissed off Ticketmaster. Joey, they did exactly that. First, they called up their clients and were telling them that they couldn't pay payroll and that they were in trouble when they weren't. And then when that didn't shake enough of them, Ticketmaster literally called up all the clients and said, hey, we're going to give you this $250,000 marketing bonus to sign with us, which is basically just a way to poach them away. So, no, they are ruthless and aggressive, and absolutely, I think that is the number one reason that blockchain ticketing has not worked. But to your point, TrueStub actually isn't directly the point of sale. we work agnostically with any ticketing platform and blend in seamlessly to provide a second layer. And that's where it really gets interesting, because we're not taking from Ticketmaster, and we can part whether it's Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, Vivid, you could go through the list. We're already designed to be able to port up seamlessly. And then we actually add value to every holder within a stakeholder within the ticketing experience, including the ticketing companies. And I think that that's where we really have a unique angle here, is by onboarding directly through. So we partner directly with the promoter, with the ticketing company, or with the artist. And the majority of the partnerships are through and will be through the promoter, because that's where our pocket really lies. Like I said, my 10,000 hours before tech were in the music industry. One of my co-founders, he ran Virtuous Ticketing, that company, for 9 years. Before that, he was managing Sire Records, worked with everyone from the Ramones to Lou Reed to the Smiths, could keep going down the list. And then my other co-founder is the former CMO of Insomniac. He left right around when the pandemic hit as well, but he was the head of marketing the first year that EDC ever sold out. And before that, he founded Moonshine Records, and he's a godfather of electronic and has been promoting, throwing festivals since the 90s. So the way that we're able to penetrate and go to market is through the promoters and through what we're doing with TrueStub Prime, which you could really equate to something like really Rolling Loud Punks is probably the easiest comp, and white labeling that, because you're able to put a huge amount of capital up front into these promoters' hands while then providing a seamless experience. But I don't even want to muddle it with Prime. I'm probably getting a little too deep in the weeds here again.
Can I ask a follow-up? Because now you mentioned promoters, and that's something that I had done, with EDC, with Made Events, with all these other venues. And the idea would be to go to, instead of going to the ticket companies, you're saying you're going to go to the event promoters and maybe like the agents of the artists. Is that going to be like your initial target?
Yeah, correct. So the initial GDM is with promoters. We already have our first 2 festival promoters warmed up. That being said, one of our co-founders has a really great relationship with a ticketing company that is already really interested in the platform, which gets to like what we got done yesterday or this week rather, and are rolling out. We had a major milestone getting the platform up and running so you can actually head to truestub.com right now and set up a website, and we have actual activity on chain with people getting delivered their founder stubs. I'm just really excited about that, Joey. But to your point, yes, we're going to market with promoters because our team really understands them. We understand the pain points that they're dealing with, and they're the people that are going to on the B2B side, benefit arguably the most from what TrueStub does, because as much as on the front end, we're tightening the fan creator experience, on the back end, this really becomes a CRM that gives obfuscated. We're not giving anyone's actual personal information, but account data. That's the psychographics that we're able to understand about fans, like to what Steve was saying. Like, it's pretty unprecedented, and it's really frustrating for current artists, for current promoters, to be the people who are creating all this data and be data gated and paywalled from the on the platforms that are holding it. And that's one of the major ethos that we are operating with here as well, is putting the data back into the hands of the creators.
Okay, one last one. I'm sorry. Is anything that you've built proprietary or like patentable, or that can stop somebody like a Ticketmaster or a Live Nation from doing themselves? Like, is there something that you guys have? And I mean, you could just answer with a yes or no. You don't have to tell us what it is if you can't.
Joey, don't apologize. I remember last time I hopped up here, you asked killer questions. The short answer is yes, absolutely. We've built out our completely down to the wallet that we're using for the platform. Everything is built out our own. That's part of why it's taken so long. And we think we have a pretty defensible moat.
Yeah, great one, Joey. I was gonna say, like,
Thank you, Steve, for letting me
no,
ask those questions.
no, you don't have to thank and don't apologize. I was actually, it's so funny. Like, I'll just reveal because I randomly, probably not like, no need to be a secret of what you say behind people's back. I literally texted Cap about you this morning, like during the show, about how you like you're the ideal stage member, Joey. You ask good questions. You're interested in the guests. You pay attention and actively listen. And like again, like Cap mentioned earlier, he doesn't want people talking about things they don't know about. You don't do that. You actually ask questions about things instead. Like when you ask about, like we've had two people on stage this morning. Someone running a horse racing, a horse racing based game, and now a ticketing game. And you ask engaging questions in both instances that we might not have asked. Plus, I also have the Caruso conundrum of I'm so deeply close to this at the moment that for me, I would maybe not go as deep as I could. So anyway, long story short, appreciate you and never apologize for asking questions. I will always, just because we're homies, I know I can always cut you off if I need to or anything like that, but I haven't had the need to at any time. So appreciate you, Joey, and just echo what Caruso said that you asked great questions. Dan Chan, I saw your hand fly up as we were talking a little bit of ticketing, so I'll let you get in here if you want to ask Caruso a question as well.
My questions are not about what he's talking about, the ticket stuff. I'm still on the Zed stuff. So if you want me to talk about Zed, cool, let me know. If not, I can wait up.
Yeah, we can get back to that then, but just hang tight, and we'll definitely get back to that as we keep going, maybe in the next couple of minutes as we keep going through this. But I guess, Caruso, let me ask this. So you're basically building, to your point, working directly with artists and creating this thing. As I kind of mentioned earlier, it's like, instead of every artist creating their own thing individually and trying to have a blockchain team, it just made, like, it blows my mind that as much as I've worked in the business world and done these things, that I didn't come to that conclusion. My conclusion was like, oh, Taylor Swift should release something for her fans and have a whole blockchain team. Not really feasible for artists big and small. So, like, let me ask this, like, is this something that's built for all artists? Obviously big ones are probably the ones that are going to test it out early, but like, what does it look like from a testing perspective when people are using this tech? Like, could somebody who's a local artist potentially, or a smaller artist, get involved with this in some way?
No, great question. So no, out the gate, we are going to be focused on more of like you could think of it as like white glove, and we're going to be partnering directly with larger artists, making sure that we can properly control, manage the experience, because it's really important to foster each one of these societies and communities that enters, because that's part of the special sauce here. As much as the ticket stub, and it's not the ticket, but your ticket stub is your onboarding path. Really, the web that catches you is the fan experience of the societies and the loyalty program and the rewards and everything that we're building in there. But here, Steve, can you kind of tighten me in for a second there?
No. Like I think you're doing a good job. Just keep rolling as far as the you're basically talking about the way your white glove servicing people onto it. You're going to be able to utilize this with them at least at the start, and then the goal long term is blank.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No. And beautiful. So there's two goals long term that I can't wait to get to. Whether you are a new band or an artist, or even just a fan of an artist that you think deserves a society and should be on TrueStub, that's absolutely coming, where you're going to be able to basically cast a vote to be able to rally to get that community in there. Another thing that I'm really excited about doing that we can't implement quite yet, but it's going to be so cool, is being able to backdate all the shows you went to, because it's really exciting that we're able to capture all of the current memories from here on out. But what about everything that came before this? What about all the experiences? Like the example I always use, because as much as we're talking about music, TrueStub is going to be huge for sports. And the example that I always use is like I have the last time I ever saw Kobe. I have that ticket, and it's fading. It's losing its luster. And it's also it's a piece of paper. I could lose it, and for me to be able to have that saved on the chain, for me to be able to not have to have it with me, to be able to share that I was there, for the Lakers to know that I was there, and for me to feel like I am rewarded as a fan for being there. These are all things that I think are really achievable that Web3 unlocks for us. And it's not like we need to shove Web3 down people's throats. Like when I say Web2 front end, Web3 back end, you're able to log into TrueStep with just an email and password. All the crypto wires are tucked in the back where you don't need to see them, because that's actually a turnoff. And like what I'm so excited about too is how the same way that Top Shot was, a major Trojan horse use case for Web3 that it pulled me on just because I was an NBA fan. We're able to do that for fandom, for like whether it's you're a fan of a sports team, whether you're a fan of an artist. Like if you care enough about that artist to buy a ticket, we then are able to put a digital asset into your hands for free, make it fun and exciting. And that's an interesting part too. It's like we couldn't have done this a couple years ago because we didn't have gasless minting. And in order for this to work, it needs to be fun, exciting, and if not free, like it has to make sense. And that's what's really cool too about the model is we've actually figured out how to make money off of these True Stubs while giving them to our users for free. And that's where it's, we basically just charge something around $1 in the service fees of your ticket. So, and this is why when you partner directly with the promoter, with the ticketing company, if anyone's buying a ticket to a show, the service fees right now are ridiculous. So if you just charge something like $1 in there, we can sleep well at night knowing that we're providing well more than $1 worth of value with just the collectible alone. Then you have the time capsule function and all of the loyalty that comes with it. But that's where you're able to kind of just Trojan horse this Web3 adoption into the ticketing experience.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And your point about your Lakers Kobe one is a great example because, I was talking about the aggregate earlier, and we were talking about the aggregate earlier of going to shows and doing things offline, which is one of the big, beautiful parts. If we talk in NFT community so often about what are you doing for the international holders and what are you doing for the dispersed holders and what do you do in between from a digital perspective? And here you have a solution for artists to say, if you're creating fan content, maybe that's eventually going to find a way to get you prestige. If you are creating, if you are buying things digitally, maybe that's a way for you to do it. If you're engaging with them, maybe that's a way. All these ways for you to earn it when you're not going to concerts, not just going to the richest person who gets a front row seat to a Taylor Swift concert. And similarly, if you're a huge fan, again, I'll give an example of a smaller artist. I always say this example, like I love Jason Mraz. I love his music. Happens to have the same birthday as me, which is wacky, by the way. But love Jason Mraz, love his music. And me and my wife always have been a fan because we're like, hey, like he makes positive music and we dig it and we can vibe. He doesn't play the biggest arenas, but the idea that I could have him on this platform show my fandom, because I've literally thought about getting my first tattoo of saying, I won't give up on us, because there's a song about it. And it's actually about not giving up on yourself. People think it's a love song. And he talks about how it's about, driving yourself forward and not giving up on us. He's singing the song to himself because he was in a dark time. It's one of my favorite NGMI songs that I go back to bring myself back. It's like, if I do that and earn prestige, the idea that I could get a backstage pass or a signed guitar or, a personalized shout out, or like we like him. It's like those ideas of those things, because he would know I'm a top fan and not just me tweeting at him and hope he sees, like is how I displayed it. But what Cruiser just said on a even, zoomed in micro level, imagine being able to know that you were at, someone's last, like LeBron retires. He has his last game. He plays with Bronny. And because LeBron has more money than God, LeBron could say, I want everybody at that last game who showed up to be rewarded with a signed jersey by me and Bronny. He could do that, buy wallet, and then that ticket, or, the people might even be able to sell the opportunity to have that. But even if they couldn't, like the opportunity that you would receive that reward is so cool to redeem. So there's just these unbelievable opportunities it's weird because it feels like marketing, but it's like, not marketing that's trying to trick you as a fan. It's marketing that works for both the artist and the fan. So it's like a whole new term and a whole new form of loyalty that changes. But Joey, again, saw your hand fly up. Go ahead and get in here.
Yeah, so you're talking about collectibles, and obviously then my hand goes up, because as somebody who's in the collectible space right now with on-chain collectibles and also a huge fan of off-chain collectibles, like I just watched an episode of King of Collectibles on Netflix where somebody brought in the ticket stub for, oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, it was a ticket stub. Oh, it was from Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. And, you know, it's graded and whatever, and it's worth all this money. So, like, do you, and people love having that, right? They love touching it. They love feeling it. And then obviously we believe that, you know, putting that stuff in a vault and on chain is safer and better. So do you think that is your thesis that the future, will you be able to trade these like what you're saying with these moments and with these ticket stubs, will there be a marketplace to trade these? To Steve's point, like if I go to LeBron James's last game and him and his son both score 30 points and it's the first time ever, whatever, so now my ticket stub is valuable, will you guys support a marketplace, or what will that look like when it comes to trading these?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the only tokens that are currently soulbound on the platform and will be are the founder stubs, the ones that we're releasing right now, because we want to make sure that like the people that were really with us are riding with us, and there's some special goodies that come with it. That being said, it'd be undecentralized, you know, which it'd be against the ethos if we and just not aligned with what the actual ticket stub was if you weren't able to sell or trade it. These absolutely may have collectible value. That's something that as a team, we're more focused on the priceless aspect of this. Like that Kobe stub to me, you couldn't put a number on that to me. And like, that's what gets me so excited about True Stub is as much as these may have collectible value and absolutely can be traded, there's a real personal value that transcends the financial, where just people care about holding on to these because that value is like that's a little piece of themselves, and that's what I think is so exciting about bringing the ticket stub back.
Yeah, so there will be the ability to trade these stubs and moments like we do currently with ticket stubs, but your hope is it becomes more of a priceless collectible for people. Is that what I heard, or no?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And thank you. So let me reiterate. My bad. So yeah, you absolutely will be able to trade, sell, collect these on a different level. But the way that we're designing the platform down to the reward mechanics, like we're more focusing on the fan aspect than the collectible aspect. Like we want you to hold on to this because it's your key into that connection with the tribe, with the artist, with the brand. And that's where we think that there's a ton of value.
Awesome. No, this is exactly what this space is all about. And you can see as I'm talking, as I get excited, why I find everything so interesting, right? It's like, oh, by the way, Hizzy sharing in the chat a Milli Vanilli ticket. That is a fucking grail. Amazing. But the best is when they tried to re-record it, and God bless them. Like, by the way, like I saw some like meme that was like Milli Vanilli watching all these kids sit, get famous for lip syncing on TikTok, like, and they just had them being like, what the fuck? But the best is when they tried to like re-release their music, and God bless them, they were not singers, and they tried, and it was just like, duh, it's true, because it just doesn't sound quite right. So God bless them, Milli Vanilli. They were the OG lip syncers, but yeah, in any case, putting the train back on the tracks, I would say like this is a really cool solution. I recommend people follow True Stub and keep up with it, because there's going to be, opportunities to engage with your favorite brands. There's going to be, Bone Shake coming up, which I don't know if you want to hit on that before we let you go, Caruso, as well. But there's a ton of things that are coming down the pike for this. And I think it's exactly what this technology is built for. And it's actually using the technology, hiding the technology, but using it in a way that it sort of makes things better for something that everybody participates in, which is music, fandom. Like, you can be a True Stub, you can engage in True Stub if you go to one concert a year, or you can do it in a way to engage with your favorite artist. So, Caruso, any other thoughts on that, or anything you want to hit on before we let you get out of here?
Well, first off, I just want to thank Steve. You're an absolute legend. Chris, you're even better than Steve. Don't tell him I said that. No, but and Joey, like I really think of you as like a third host on this, man. The acumen that you bring with your questions and your thoughts. It's. I just want to, before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting such an incredible space every morning. I've been waking up, I used to joke the first time I came on Coffee with Captain, I was like, oh my God, it is so early over here on the West Coast. These days I've been waking up around this time, and Coffee with Captain is part of my morning. So, it's such a pleasure to be able to vibe with people that are as plugged in and smart, and really to Joey's point, digging in, asking the right questions. Because we're in a very we know we're in a niche pocket here. How many active wallets are there? But I'm just, I just want to say everyone should definitely sign up and create an account. I want to do a special little hookup for the Coffee with Captain crew. So if anyone signs up over the next hour, we are going to be giving away another founder stub to any of the new signups over the next hour. So make sure you hop into truestub.com, create an account. You're going to be able to hop into your shrine, which will be empty right now. We're going to run a little bit of verification. But just for the record, too, I want to point out that this is the alpha version. So I want you to get in there. I want you to try and break it. I want you to give us feedback and let us know what you love and what you don't. We've been working on this for a long time, and this alpha version that we just released is really it's really complicated. How whether we're talking about building your own wallet that's tied into the login system, whether it's having all these interactions, this has been a real balance to build, and it's all built on one instance right now, which is if you're a dev, that's a whole cumbersome beast unto itself. So really interested to see what people's reactions are. And I just want to point out too that founder stub actually happens to be a very special Pop Wonder piece. Pop Wonder did the first ever collab with Wicked Craniums back in the day. So it felt like a beautiful full circle moment. We wanted to make sure we had a beautiful collectible to go alongside with it, and Pop is an absolute G. If you're bringing up Bone Shake, I do want to point out, yes, we are throwing we're planning a flag for IRL. Talking about what we've done with Wicked Craniums, gotten the community into over 300 festival shows around the world. Live events have been a part of our ethos for a long time. Now that we have the CMO, former CMO of Insomniac as our CMO, it's we're taking a level up. So, we recognize that, especially stateside.
Is that person doxxed? Because I'm curious who it is.
Yeah, his name's Steve Levy. Absolutely. Yeah, and by all means too, actually, if anyone's interested, we just did we brought on Dre Millie. If anyone knows him, he's an incredible guy as our community and partnerships lead, and he just hosted a great space with Steve, Billy, and myself, all on video. That you can find on the Wicked Craniums or the TrueStub website, where we were talking about TrueStub, breaking it down, so you can actually hear directly from those two legends yourself there, or find them on LinkedIn.
Love it. No, yeah, it's so much expertise and so much opportunity. I'm just grateful that I was able to connect with Crusoe when he came on, to be a part of it and follow up afterwards. You could hear my excitement on the show as we had him on, and the more I dug into it and the more discussions we had, it's something that I don't put my, I have made the decision after, working for, I mentioned this, after working for 90 plus hours a week for a long time, or probably 70 to 90, depending on the week, for, basically a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it may be. I made the decision I'm only going to work on the things that I want to work on. And this is one of those things that really caught my interest. And so I don't know. Cap, any other thoughts on that as we let Crusoe get out of here?
Yeah, I love it. Very fitting. While some may have not connected the dots yet in terms of going from Zed Run to ticketing, back to Zed Run, and a few other highlights we'll just fly over and maybe do a deeper dive next week. But perfect segue, perfect connection, because Steve, we've been quite literally talking about tickets and how on-chain tech can make something better. It can disrupt an existing industry. It can truly enhance the current non Web3, the current Web2 product. And we've been talking about this as a concept since, I don't know, the early Zed Run days.
Full circle. No, literally since 2021, like on this space, like, and even before we were even doing this space, we've been talking about a Cap.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense, and excited for Caruso, and appreciate you coming on today. Looking forward to supporting, and this is one that we've gotten, I think that for a while we've gotten caught up in celebrity meme coins and everything that's happening immediately right now in the space, all the different farming activities. It's refreshing to not lose sight of real builders building real world, whether on-chain consumer products or real world physical products, and exciting to see the builders still building. So yeah, appreciate your time and thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Caruso. Love having you on.
Steve, and I think we lost Dan, so we don't have to go back there. Maybe we'll have him on during the Zed Run leadership show. I'm sure he'll have a few feedback points for them as well. But the couple other talking points I wanted to fly over, I did pin up above a post from 3D Shannon. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the TLDR is Cool Cats in turmoil right now. A lot of the team was let go. Discord was somewhat in disarray. I don't have all the details, Steve, and maybe not time enough this morning to really dive into it, but it was certainly, I feel, relevant, newsworthy, and at least worth mentioning in passing. That full post is up above, or if you want to hop in the Cool Cats Discord and get more details, you can. But the TLDR is the board making a decision to let go most of the staff. Klon, the artist, still is on the board, along with Ken Cron and 2 founding members of Futureverse, 6 board members in total. This is all kind of coming, like I said, via Discord and feedback I'm seeing on the timeline, as well as some DMs. There was an announcement due yesterday. They had a teaser video last week, I believe, that teased an announcement on yesterday on the 27th. That came and went, no announcement. And then followed by majority of the team, it sounds like, being let go in Discord. So on one end, we have the Cool Cats turmoil. We have the Zed Run turmoil. On the other end, Steve, and I said this in the war room, I don't say this lightly, I think ETH NFTs might actually be back this time. I've been hesitant last couple of days. Things have been looking good. There's been a lot of unique sales. There's been a lot of sales above floor. Listings are at the lowest they've been in over a year. Sales have been the highest they've been in over, like, it is, I believe, not a coincidence. We saw this shift in line with the blur farming essentially coming to an end. We had, I think it was last week, we had the loan crisis that we saw a bunch of liquidations, and whether, which led to the dip in floors, and it's been climbing up since. But I think more so than floor prices climbing up, people are collecting again. These aren't, listings are down. These sales aren't people just buying bids that they're probably going to flip. We're seeing a lot of people collecting in multiple collections, not just apes and pudgies, but those are the two I've seen just in the last 48 hours. A lot of my friends have made big moves, and I don't know, man. It really feels like sentiment has shifted. And while will there still be hiccups? Yes, but I still am extremely long. I do think ETH NFTs in general, but I think it'll be led by ETH NFTs, get another run and in this bull. And I think it may be underway. Well, I don't want to jinx it, but everything I'm looking at on the timeline, the sentiment, and the underlying metrics, it doesn't seem like CBB is going back to blur farming. Could things change? Potentially. But I think we're past that era of incentivized bidding being the lion's share of the volume in this space. And with that, we're going to see less volume, but it's people who actually want to buy the NFT to collect or at least hold for a while and potentially sell for a gain later, as opposed to bid, get stuck with it and dump it into bids because they don't care to sell it at a loss because that's not the game they're playing. Like, it was just, it's still kind of, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. It just really, it blows my mind that there's still individuals that don't think blur farming impacted sentiment and valuations of NFT collections. Like, it just, I've seen data on both sides of it. I've seen arguments on both sides of it. And as we start to come out of this, I think that's another data point that incentivized bidding is not good for collectibles and quote unquote NFT communities.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think both things can be true. Like, and I think you agree with this. Well, first of all, on the Cool Cats thing, before we get into that one, absolutely insane. Shout out to Mackie for tagging us and giving us that information yesterday, because that was, he hit us last night, and I woke up this morning because I know you and I both, I went to bed after the debates after I was like, what the hell is going on here? I went to bed confused, as many of us did, and then woke up this morning, had the text, had some context from Mackie, looked in, tried to shake a couple trees, couldn't get any answers initially. But yeah, the fact that it looks like the team's being laid off, nobody knows what's going on in Discord, it's crazy to see. What's even crazier, though, to some degree, is that Cool Cats, once like a 13, 14 needs floor, something like that, was one of the hottest projects in all of Web3. People buying at all sorts of crazy valuations. One of the most noteworthy, like the cute IP, like my was in the Macy's Day Parade. My daughter's friend actually pointed it out to her. I remember my daughter being like, yeah, my friend showed me an NFT that she liked. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, like my friend, we were Googling around because we heard about NFTs. And she showed me one. She's like, it looked kind of like a doodle, but it was a cat and it didn't have quite the same style, but it was kind of bright. And I was like, Cool Cats? And she showed me, she's like, that's it. And they loved it. And then when we went shopping together and bought one, it was like a crazy great brand. And so I have so much admiration there, but it feels like a bunch of fits and starts, whether it was on games or the Milk Token or, trying to create, this series. All of these things just kept happening and it just couldn't seem to land the plane. And to see what's happening yesterday, the crazy part to me is, as we talked about with like me being apathetic with Zed Run, is that this would have been a major story even 18 months ago. And a year and a half later, people it didn't even make BeatCheck's snapshot. BeatCheck does the snapshot every day, which is an incredible coverage of it. It's how I wake every morning. If you're not following BeatCheck, if you're not following Legendary, if you're not listening to Modern Market, you're missing out. Anybody who listens to the show will tell you, listen to Modern Market to get the TLDR and stuff. Come here and we can talk deep about it. And it's like almost like a 1-2 punch that a lot of people like with our shows. They're a serious business show. I love the way they approach things. So they're very much after our hearts. But like the fact that we didn't lead with that, the fact that it didn't get discussed until after we went, election, Zed, True Stub, talked a little bit of everything, we've hit on other things throughout like various topics. And then at 10:20, 20 minutes after Showtime over and all these other things, we're hitting on Cool Cats. Potentially, that is a sad state of affairs to begin with. The other thing that you said, though, in the ETH NFTs is that I think both things can be true. And I think that people sometimes, like, it's weird because crypto is the smartest people I know. But sometimes I feel like we just try to oversimplify things. This is the same way that like sports fans do, where we're like, people will be like, oh, like Peyton Manning can't win the big one. It's like, but his numbers are good in the Super Bowl. His defense sucked. And then he wins with freaking, he won one with Indianapolis when he was good, but when he won one in Denver, Peyton Manning sucked that year. He was like a middle of the road quarterback, but yet he was getting credit for it. And we create these narratives. You can't win the big one.
You're being generous calling him middle of the road. He had a literal noodle arm. I don't know if he could throw the football 20 yards downfield that year.
Yeah, I believe the technical term is he had a PP arm. But no, he basically like, but the point being, we had this narrative, Peyton Manning can't win the big one. Then he did, and suddenly he was on the pantheon of quarterbacks again. And, he wasn't going to be Dan Marino. Although, all-time moment, by the way, and I'll get off my rant on this, but it's funny. All-time moment, I want to say, and I'll try to find the video, it was Boomer Esiason was sitting at the desk and said this comment where he was like, yeah, Peyton Manning doesn't win. People are going to start asking if he's just going to be another Dan Marino who couldn't win the big one. And Dan Marino was at the desk with him, was like, what the fuck, man? So I got to find that clip. But like the idea that we create these narratives And I think with ETH NFTs, people have done this thing to bring the analogy and actually land the plane on this, where they're like, ETH NFTs were killed by Blur. ETH NFTs weren't killed by Blur. They were a bubble, and that's why they fell. It has nothing to do with Blur. Both can be true. We can actually have this conversation in an intellectually honest way to say, if you're incentivized bidding to bring down numbers and you turn non-fungible tokens into fungible assets by over-financializing them, then yes, people aren't shopping for traits and grails and trying to trade things around. They're just going to do the incentivized bidding to make more money. If you incentivize people to lose money to make more money in the end, it will happen. So yes, the incentivized bidding absolutely hurt ETH NFTs, but also we don't know what the true price and value of these things are. We don't know yet. They are Veblen goods, yet they have utility, right? And so they are programmable software, but at the same time, they're a luxury item. All of these things can be true. And are they worth $500,000? Maybe not ever again, but are they worth more than what they're worth here? Maybe. It's hard to know until there's a true market. So I think the Blur thing is definitely one that we will continue to keep an eye on. I don't think it's the bottom. I don't think they've given up Blur farming, but I think, Cap, I guess I'll leave it with this, and then I'll let you kind of go to Snowflake or whoever you want. That's what I think.
What you don't think they've given up Blur farming? What do you mean by that?
I didn't the top Blur farmer you said that was out actually put out a tweet that said he was going to, or he or she was going to continue Blur farming. And again, I'm not as deep in those streets.
No, unless I've missed something. CBB is done. Like not only done.
CBB, that's it. I thought I had seen that, or maybe I thought I had heard on Modern Market. So don't quote me on this because I'm missing this, but I thought that CBB had said they were not done after all. They said they backed that down, but I'm not sure. But if they are, and if the top Blur farmers are done, then yes, that'll happen. But I just don't think Blur farmers are completely shaken out yet from what I was. But again, you might be more in the streets than I am.
No, I mean, you can. So let me, the incentive is still there to earn. You'll get rewarded. You'll get leaderboard points if you are bidding or buying or trading on Blur. So it's still there, but after many of them felt like it was like they felt they got rugged on this last round because it was their reward was significantly less than what it was in previous seasons, and how they. I think it was even they awarded. I don't know. I should get the exact numbers because I let me see if I can find CBB's tweet. Anyways, while it's still there, they were massively collectively is anecdotal, but they were massively underwhelmed, disappointed, pissed off, frustrated with the reward they got for their Blur farming last season. And while Blur farming is still a piece of the equation, it appears that it's going to be far more advantageous to farm Blast, play the scratch off game to get your Blast points. The Blast farm has taken over the mind share, the attention share for Blur farming. So while people can still do it, just like you can still earn points on Magic Eden is not having an impact on the market because you don't have whales that are only bidding to earn points, and then if they get stuck with anything, going to dump it into bids that. I think now, will you still earn points for bidding on Blur? Yes, it still exists, but the thought of these. I mean, you can see it in the collections. You can see it in the collections where the bid walls there's not they don't exist anymore. Previously, there would be in a collection like Apes, there would be thousands, several thousand ETH. In bids at any one time, individual farmers would have hundreds of bids each because that's how they're earning points. Now, since this new season, it's almost went away. Now there are actually I take it back on the Magic Eden front. Magic Eden right now is getting. It looks like if anyone's farming, it's Magic Eden and not Blur. Looking at the ape collection right now using Mintify because it's an aggregator. It pulls the data from all of them in. And Apes, which by the way, since we've been on the call, I think Apes floor has ripped up over a full ETH. I think it came in today just around 9. I just now back into double digits at 10.1. So the floor is at 10.1. There is a bid wall at 9.75, 345 bids on Magic Eden from 7 different bidders. But That's the first I've seen a Magic Eden bid wall like that here recently. But to give you an idea on the Blur bids, there's one bid at 9.81, one bid at 9.8, one bid at 9.75, and then one person has 10 bids at 9.46. Compared to if you would have looked at this before this last season of Blur ended, it was hundreds of it in several places. And it's not just apes, it's across all these collections. So the actual high volume Blur farmers, and CBB is I think he had more Blur points last season than the next 10 farmers combined. It might have been the next 50 combined. But either way, one whale at the end of it was doing the majority of the volume. And that at least as of now, I don't know, maybe he said something differently, but he said he was done, and you can see the data. The bids have clearly been pulled. They're not on Blur anymore. And so when all the farming was going on, often you would see the majority of sales would be sold into bids. Now, if you look, the majority of sales are buys. We're seeing, I'll hand it, you got hands here, Steve, so I'll hand it back to you. I'll see if I can grab some actual data. I don't want to just be making up information. I've seen a few tweets on the timeline with good data points and their sources in terms of things I mentioned earlier, like listings and actual sales above floor. Like this is something we just weren't seeing during the Blur bidding, the Blur bidding era, the incentivized bidding era. It's now we're seeing what I believe less volume, less volatility is a good thing for PFP collections, for collectibles. It's people buying what they actually want to buy, whether even if it is for a flip, they're buying with the intent to flip it, to sell it for more, not just dump it into a bid for less. It just has a huge impact on the market. I agree with you. It wasn't Blur farming it's not the sole cause of NFT floors crashing. I didn't see a path towards NFT floors ever reviving while it was going on. That's the biggest issue. We just saw it play out probably a half dozen times. It was near impossible for any of these collections to build any sort of real momentum, because as soon as they'd start building momentum and people would start buying and collecting, buying what they wanted, and floor going up, and this might be, then you'd have a couple hundred assets dumped into bids by farmers, and it would crush the floor again. So it created a lot of buyer uncertainty. You had buyers who, maybe wanted to join a community or join a collection or pick up an asset, but knowing that the Blur farmers loomed large, like, well, maybe I should just wait, and they're likely going to continue to drive the floor down, because it was just, we saw it play out so many times. I wasn't a buyer, or I was a very, very selective buyer, and anytime I was making a buy during that era, I was doing so fully expecting the floor to likely continue to dip. It's just, that was a very, very significant headwind and for all NFTs. And now that appears to have been eliminated for now, if not greatly mitigated, because the ones who were doing it at the extreme volume are not doing it. And if that holds, and I believe it will, because it's just not, it doesn't appear to be worth it for them anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean a lot there, and I think that'll be interesting to see. And it's funny because you could check the tape on this show, by the way. If you look back, you can check the tape, and my three scenarios I've generally given go as follows. Scenario.
Hold up. Who is the Magic Eden bidder? Because they just pulled him. Whoever's listening in, show yourself. Who just pulled the bids? I saw him disappear in real time.
Amazing. People listening into Cap right now. But the way that this works is threefold. That I said. There are two unlikely scenarios and one likely scenario. And then there's obviously the fourth scenario that Blur just continues to cook. So there are really four scenarios I played out in this. Scenario number one, unlikely. Pac-Man just shuts down Blur because it's not worth his time and he just wants to spend all his time on Blast. And says, like, look, Blur's cool. That was nice. We have a nice community there. We have some loyal people who have stuck through it with us, but this is not the way, and he pulls out. That would be number one. That's not going to happen because there's a lot of reasons that won't happen, but that won't happen. Thing number two would be that it becomes shut down some way by like the government or someone goes after it or there's a regulatory thing. Again, unlikely, not going to happen, but that would be the other way that something like Blur goes away. Option number three, option number three is the obvious, like if all things stay the same and stay equal, Blur farming just continues and things get farmed into oblivion down to zero, right? Which is a relatively likely scenario. And the other most likely scenario that I've been pounding the table on for months and months at a time at this point is that at some point, the rewards, the punch bowl goes away and the rewards are not worth the work. And because a combination of Pac-Man wanting to drive more people to Blast and the combination of the rewards not being as worthwhile, they find time, whether it's with Blur or whether it's with Blast or another ecosystem, spending time elsewhere for the farmers is worth more money, and it is not worth their time, money, and energy to risk in here, whereas the risk is not worth the reward. People maybe get wrecked and don't make money, or people do make money, but it's not as much as they want, as we've talked about. And now we're actually seeing that play out potentially in real time, to Cap's point, and that's the scenario that I've been pounding the table on for months on this show, where at some point, if the incentives tip in the other direction, because with a thing like Blast, the token has to hold up, which it hasn't, by the way. It's been dipping consistently. We'll see what the season 2 Blast announcement is next week, and if they get that thing back going. But with Blast, it's like you can just participate in the blockchain and just stake money and earn native yield. If you do nothing else, and assuming that there's obviously platform risk, but assuming and blockchain risk, but assuming nothing else, if you just have ETH sitting there in the Blast ecosystem bridged, you just earn money against it, right? Like they have the native yield. That was part of the giant premise that they had. It's why OSF and Mando bridged over like 500 ETH initially, all of those things. And then anything you earn on top of that becomes gravy if you do nothing else, right? There's obviously ways to gamble and the farming and all that stuff. But like Blur introduces an element of you might get wrecked on a bunch of money and then you might not make money. And so to me, that's what it was, is when the rewards become less than, and kind of what Cap just said out, a scenario we've been talking about for months, less than the game theory goes in the I dropped my phone and it just unplugged my wired headphones. So I'll just finish my thought on the speaker and then I'll hit Caruso, and then maybe we might actually need to, we'll let our guest get back in here, and then we probably need to wrap because we were running way over time. But the game theory will tip against spending all the time, energy, and money there, making bots, paying people, losing money at too much risk with low reward. And I think that's what we potentially see playing out in real time. But that said, Caruso, I saw your hand was up, so I want to go your way one more time for any thoughts on any of this before we probably close down.
No, I appreciate the toss, and I lowered it because you basically touched upon it. But the lesson that I'm taking away from this, talking about the 3 different platforms that we've chatted about today, whether it's Blur, whether it's Zedrun, whether it's Top Shot, is the unhealthy precedent that's set initially with high incentives. I think that if you're a platform, if you're a founder, you have to be thinking about that long-term balance and that sustainability, because I think we've seen the way that this plays out now, and that it's a net. The rewards are gonna, if you're bringing in people just for the money, like obviously you need to balance that and you need to incentivize early adopters, but I think that overall, like, just the rewards need to, and I hate saying this as someone who would be receiving them, but I think the rewards need to be lower. If you look at like a 2.0 or a traditional loyalty or rewards or a cashback program, something like Delta Sky Miles or anything like this, like, they've found a healthy balance to make this work and people still use it. And I think that that's where we need to move towards.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that that's a healthy thing. And look, there's always good, like, here's the thing that's great about Blast, by the way, is that there's always an opportunity with Blast to participate in the casino if you want to participate in the casino, right? There's always that chance. There's going to be casino games. And there literally are casino games on Blast. And by the way, I think that's healthy. I think if people want to gamble, give them things to gamble on. Or as Garga said yesterday in the tweet, Cap, we didn't even get to this. A whole nother topic maybe for Monday, if it even is still relevant. But, I put out a tweet yesterday that about Garga, talking about like not financializing in an exchange with Beanie. By the way, heartwarming. Beanie's working on educational content. He said he was inspired by my book and the things we were doing, which is like crazy full circle considering he was the first crypto influencer that I remember, or NFT influencer. And I bought Punk's comics because of him and ended up making bank on them and all those things. And there's been a whole Beanie arc that's been, good, bad, ugly, and everything in between, with some things that people ask questions about. And, he's been, I think, a pretty relevant player. But him and Garga had an exchange, and, Garga made the point of like, look, we're not doing anything that's going to be specifically financialized. We're doing things that are just shipping cool shit. And I don't know, like, I think as we go that direction, I think it's a good thing, but I also think it's fine to say if a blockchain has a gambling program on it, if other side has a casino in it, go use it, go gamble. But the gambling doesn't necessarily need to be on the assets you're excited about. Again, Colony's a great example where it's like, Joey's running on Colony. It's like, I don't care that there wasn't Blast Gold. There was a card that I saw below market value last night from one of the top collectors. I put in an offer. They accepted it. It has nothing to do with me farming gold or getting this for that reason. It's me continuing to build up a collection of things that I want. So look, that said, Cap, any other thoughts? We should probably, and apologies to Joey and Snowflake, I think we are going to close it there because we are at 10:38, so we're running long. We're running about 38 minutes long. So I know Joey and Snowflake, you've had your hands up, but I actually have some meetings I got to get to, and I got to get ready in the next probably couple of minutes, and I need to somehow shower and be ready in the next 20. So for an important one. So Cap, any parting thoughts before we go and I try to do a speed shower?
Yeah, good chat today. Appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for everyone listened in and joined us on stage. I did post the chart. It made my story a lot better if there wasn't the 345 Magic Eden bids up there. So the fact that they removed them to help me out, I do appreciate it. The lack of bids is promising, which may sound weird, but it wasn't real liquidity. It wasn't real bids. It wasn't a bid wall of actual buyers. Rather, 99.9% of them were actual dumpers. And that was just a very, very challenging mechanic or incentive rather to create any sort of real momentum. I don't know where it goes from here. I've been saying I do think consolidation is inevitable. Maybe, and I'm not taking shots. I'm not, I don't wish any of them ill will, but to attempt to tie it all together today, Steve, maybe we're seeing a couple of our topics today, be it Cool Cats and Zed. Maybe that's two that don't make it through this cycle. Maybe that's part of the cost of consolidation is a couple that have and I'm not saying this happens. Zed will relaunch, and I freaking hope. I hope it goes well, but I think we'd be naive to think that everyone makes it. And if this take on not just liquidity but momentum coming back to ETH NFTs, momentum and attention, I have a hard time thinking it's going to be all. I think it's going to be a lot of the ones that we talk here about regularly, but even some of those may not make it through, because I think if we do get another real run, Steve, it's going to start, like, whether we like it or not, it's probably not fair to the teams and founders. I think it almost instantly increases the level of expectations from the community, in the holders. I think if apes and penguins run up to 20 ETH and then 30 ETH, if other ETH NFTs aren't moving, aren't seeing any momentum, if they're just and not even going to zero, just like using the example one that ripped up to double digit ETH before, now it's sitting at 0.2, 0.25. If we see majors run in 2-3x from here, and excitement come back, and some of the ones that have been around since 2021, they're just maintaining. I think maybe a consequence or a side effect of that might be creating a harder environment for those that aren't seeing the increase in floors. Like it's we're human beings, and I think I could think of a lot of projects that if they've had a lot of community members that's loyal, I might question how loyal they would be if we get that second bull run of NFTs and they're on the sidelines. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? And then I'll let you close this out.
No. I mean, honestly, no closing thoughts. I think you kind of synthesized it pretty well, and I would just kind of verbally retweet everything you said. And it's going to be interesting to follow to see this is the natural progression. We say this on the show from time to time, where it's like we say 99% of this stuff is going to zero or is going to fail, just like any other startup and any other businesses. We're seeing it play out in real time. It's like, man, everyone was like, oh, the bags are all going to go to zero, just not my bags. And everyone held them. And it's like, statistically, something you're holding is not going to do well. And we may see this starting to play out. So look, that said, I'm going to head out of here. I know Cap's got to head out of here. It was a great discussion. Glad we went a little over. Glad we had some great builders on stage, some great commenters. Thanks to everyone who showed up. You could have spent the last 2 hours and 42 minutes with anyone. You spent it with us. We appreciate that. With that said, we'll let everybody sail off into their day. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everybody.
This episode is brought to you by DGen Network, the only community-based Web3 media network, bringing you the very best content in the NFT and cryptocurrency space. Please visit dgen.network and check out our other great shows. That's DGen, DGEN.network.
Welcome to the future.